thanks a lot, everyone, for joining me and Martin tonight. And yeah, just wanted to start the session by saying, big thanks to Martin for, taking time out to do this. And I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an introduction to, Martin. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Martin was part of the team who did the music for Tomb Raider, which I believe was Core Audio. Is that right, Martin?
No, it was Core Design Limited. It was a company. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I became aware of Martin because of him doing stuff on a label called DIY and also a label called Mantis. He ran this amazing label called Mantis that was out of Derby, and it was producing, jazzy, housey, broken beat, kind of all sorts really, but it had this sheen of quality overall. It was, for me, it was revolutionary to hear, British music that actually appealed to me kind of more than American music, because obviously it had this kind of sensibility. And then I think me and Martin met because of CDR, possibly, Martin, is that right?
Yeah, possibly. I think maybe.
Yeah.
I think we maybe knew of each other beforehand through mutual friends or something, but I think it was a CDR which was run by Tony Wachiku, who used to be part of Attica Blues, and he basically teamed up with a company in London that essentially kind of buffered him to be able to take this platform to different cities and allow people to turn up with a CDR of music and have your music played, sometimes to a half-drunken panel of people, but there were always people that were of interest and were already releasing music for a long time.
Hey, guys, sorry to interrupt. Could you all switch your mics off, please? Everyone who's got their mic on, can you switch it off, please? Thanks. Yeah, awesome. I can hear background noise.
It's me. I've got loads of stuff. I've got a box of rabbits down here. So basically it was like a really good platform for anybody, especially the London one. So people used to, it'd be like a real community thing with CDR. People would turn up with their CDs, write their name and their track title on there, and it would get played in a room of people with discerning ears. And it was I think Tony really broke the ice for a lot of people, like the likes of Sinbad and Nick, Beatnik.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The likes of that kind of crowd. They built a community, which is something I'll talk about later, actually. So yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to explain that from my personal perspective, that I was in Nottingham, I was an up-and-coming music producer, and there was people like Crazy P, Charles Webster, there was DIY, and I knew that Martin and his guys were from Derby. And it was funny because obviously the cities are quite close to each other, but I didn't really have a connection with anybody in Derby. And then because of CDR, I got to know Martin, and it was just so inspiring for me as a young producer to meet someone who I knew was, experienced and had made some amazing records, but who was also open and friendly and supportive. And Martin even helped me with some of my tracks sometimes. I remember going through to Derby and him doing a little bit of mix engineering for me. And I remember, Martin, when you were doing a remix and we were just talking, and you recorded a piece of me speaking at the same time as a shaker, and you were just like, yeah, I'll use that. It's like really, the fact that Martin could remix a track while he was hanging out with you, I thought was pretty amazing. I was like, wow, so yeah, and just a really inspiring person to know. And you've always had from what I see, as a holistic approach, Martin, like very much a personal basis with people, and not just not into the hype and all that kind of stuff. So that's inspiring. That's your intro over, Martin.
Can I go now?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, but I just wanted to say from my perspective and that, and years later, we've always kept in touch and stuff, and and it was such a buzz and you agreed to do this, so thank you.
No, it's a pleasure, Danny. Honestly, there's very few people around that are actually giving people the opportunity to do this these days. So unless they end up having to move to a different city or a different country to do a course, to see people. I was teaching in Berkeley a couple of years ago in Valencia. And I got to meet some amazing people I never thought I'd meet, that inspired me, and some young people that I was just blown away by, like, I don't know, and just, where you get your talent from, that kind of stuff. But can I just say hello to everybody that I can see? Jordan, hi Jordan. James, hi James. JP, Matthew. Hey, Matthew, nice top. Vincent showing off still. See that? Showing. Oh, is that an SB12? I can see. Yeah, I thought it might be.
He's got everything.
Yeah. Nick Spurway. I am Johnson. Hey, man. Alistair, Colton, Alexander, Stefan, Michael, Mark. Mark looks like he's just about to have a photo shoot. Darren, Mustin, Guy. God, look at Guy's hair. I wish I had
Guy's got
some
amazing
hair. Look at that guy.
Hey,
honestly, man.
Can I just
showing
say,
off again.
You guys have your mics off? Is that cool? Apart from Martin, just there's no background noise. Thanks.
John B. Hey, Clint, George, Joey, Paul, and Pablo. I hope he's joined. Ben and Orr.
Yeah.
So wow, there's a lot of people in there.
Yeah,
It's really nice to see everybody. Anyway, I don't do these things, so it's a pleasure to be here. And thanks, Danny, again. How would you like me to start? Do you want me to show people around? Or?
Yeah, I just thought, maybe do a little bit of a studio tour. That's your fancy intro. Martin runs a record label called Atjazz Record Company. He actually runs 3 labels, don't you? And then he does a lot of, you do mastering for people, you do mix engineering, obviously a very experienced music producer. And yeah, as I said in your write-up, you've pretty much done every element that there is of being an artist, and also a lot of stuff on the business side, right?
Very much so.
So
let me do the fun stuff first.
Yeah.
So let me just pick you up and I'll carry you around. I hope I don't lose you. If I do, I might have to reset my computer. But well, look, it's one of these.
I'm just going to mute myself, Martin, so that I'm not like the.
Yeah, of course. You know, feel free. Anybody, feel free to jump in at this point if you want to ask any questions. I've got you on the speakers. So, first and foremost, this side where you are, this is my console as such, which is going to change. I do apologize if you can see mess everywhere. I'm actually going to be moving studios very soon, so I'm just not bothering anymore. It's just to get to the end of the month and wrap it all up and put it in a van. So this is my old Mac under here. I've got a Mac monitor, a double monitor. I use the top monitor for my console 1 display. I think the console 1 by Softtube is probably, for me, one of the best. I don't have room. I used to have a big desk. I don't have room for a desk anymore. So this really gives me the hands-on that I need. The fader, maybe not so much, maybe a bit overkill. But again, when you're doing mastering jobs and stuff like that, or stem mixing or stem mastering, it comes in really handy. So you don't have to just keep twiddling with your mouse all the time, and it relieves your arm from stress and stuff if you're in the studio a lot. Something I get asked about a lot, and if I can just... what I'll do is I'll actually maybe play something and hold on. If I just play something in the background, let's put Alexander O'Neill on, and I'll just turn my sound down so you can't hear it, but I'll show you. Maybe you can hear the sound there. This is called an audio scope 2813, which to be honest, it's something I kind of can't live without these days. So this is the bottom end. It starts at 31.5 hertz and goes up to 16k. The more modern units do a slightly wider range, but essentially if you listen to the music you can see how it reacts, and it's pretty much timeless, it just happens as it happens, and it's very good to read. Although you shouldn't really rely on that constantly, it is incredibly useful in difficult mixing situations. Another thing is I use trusty NS10s, although they do have the CLA bass drivers in now, the Crystal Lord Algae. I use Tannoy System 8s. I'm a little bit unconventional. So Tannoy System 8 at the back. I have the Neumann K310s and the AKG LSM50. I use a Dora loudness monitor because it has a persistence area, which is really useful to use to watch when you're doing mastering more than anything else, to be honest. And your usual, sound card, patch bay, etc. And this little fella that's doing all my kind of streaming audio. Synthesizers. Let's go to the back of the studio. I've put an extra long cable on my camera tonight because I'm weird like that. This unit here is the Roland XV3080. It's still got the Tomb Raider General MIDI setup card in it from when we did the Angel of Darkness soundtrack, before we took it off to Abbey Road to record with the London Symphony Orchestra. So I kept this unit, and I've just had it repaired actually, so that's spanking working. Vintage keys, which was given to me by my colleague Peter, who he did the Tomb Raider music with. I absolutely love this unit. I used to have it when I worked at Core Design, and obviously it was their property, so when I left they kept that one. But again, Peter, he hit me up with that. I bought this from my friend Ross, which is this is called the Studio Electronics ATC. One is a Tone Chameleon. Essentially, it's a 3 oscillator synthesizer based on the Mini Moog. And with this one, you can get different filter cards for it, etc. This is one of my all-time favorite units ever. This is the Wave XT, the Microwave XT, which is made by Waldorf, who they basically use essentially this similar wave table to the PPG stuff. The Juno 6 underneath here, which I bought from Charles Webster, and that's the keyboard that the arpeggio from Stranger Things was used to make. So, and then I have some of the same synthesizers. I collected these for a while. These are called Tyscos, which eventually they were Kawai, in fact, and they made these synths called Synth 60s. And if I'm right, ARP made the filters for them. So in the early days, I did things like Wind and Sea using these units. I've got 3 of them. I know overkill, but I got them super cheap, like £60 or something. One was £80, and I got one for free. But they're really, really cool pieces of kit. If you ever see a Tysco Synth 60 or a Synth 110F, pick it up. Nord Modular, I think one of the most underrated synthesizers ever made. It's one of these synthesizers that just grows with your sound. Never really get bored of it. And then I replaced my DX7 with a DX11, because essentially I get the bass, the basis of a DX7 out of this. It's only 4, where the DX7 has got 6 modulators. This has got 4. And then this belongs to a friend of mine. It's not mine. This is the ARP 2600, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Little work stat from Moog, which is a lovely little synthesizer with a keyboard on it. I calibrated this to work over 1 volt CV, so that's wicked with my modular system. I use Behringer mixers randomly, I know, but essentially it's really quiet, and it just mixes my signals together. And I have another one there, just as a keyboard mixer. My friend Ross bought me this Behringer RD8, which is nice. It's a really funky copy of the 808, obviously. This is a piece of kit that not many people know of, which is, I was looking for one of these for about 10 years. This is the Creamway Minimax ASB, which is essentially Creamway's version of a Mini Moog, but it's 12-note polyphonic. It's absolutely amazing. It's if you ever see these, go for under £1,000. If you're a real synth head and you've got some cash, I really advise this. Is a super all-rounder. It is amazing, and it kind of has the thickness and the growl of a Mini Moog, which is this. The Mini Moog, as I'm sure you've seen these before. This also belongs to Anthony, who owns this 2600, and this is my trusty stage piano. This is the Rhodes Mark II, and that's my piccolo snare. Over here, underneath the cloth, I have my original Op Odyssey 2813, which has just been reconditioned, and I have my my Korg Monopoly, and this beautiful keyboard here, which is super underrated, the Roland Alpha Juno 1, and the PG300 controller, so I don't have to do all button twisting. This is my modular system, which I won't bore you with because it's extremely boring unless you're really into it. A little bit more there. amazing. If you're a desktop kind of synth person, the Electron model cycles is superb. It's like, oh man, it's super dope, like super dope. It's just so amazing. TD3, because everyone should have one because they're so cheap. Essentially, it costs less than a MIDI to CV converter, and essentially that's what it is. But it's also a copy of the TB303. It's not bad at all. And then I've got my kind of workhorses, which is my Moog Matriarch at the top, and probably I'd say, fair to say, I think one of the best synths ever made is the Korg Prologue 16. So essentially that's that. I've got some old equipment that doesn't really get turned on anymore, which I've got actually this is amazing, I just haven't got it out. This is the Hohner HS2E, which is an FM hybrid synthesizer. Akai S612. I've got the Roland D110, which is, I bought that literally for one sound, and another couple of units owned by Anthony, which is the K3M and a Korg VX8000. And then I do use these. This is my just my valve EQ, just to run the synths through, and a couple of really rare valve compressors there, and an S950 and an S3000. The S3000 is essentially what my earlier albums were all written on, and I'm so boring. So let's put you back up there. And
yeah, thanks, Martin. That's amazing. So I just wanted to open it up to the guys if they wanted to ask any questions about any particular pieces of equipment, or if not, we can continue. But I'll read you some of the comments, Martin. Full organ sale incoming. I don't think I can sell my liver. Sell a kidney at a time. My bank account is crying.
That's what I did, one at a time. You can survive with one.
My bank account is crying just looking at this. Studio envy, etc. So, okay, so from Jan, how does the Moog Matriarch compare to the other Moog and the other Moog like one? The name eludes me. Oh, that's not right.
Moog.
Yeah, Moog. Yeah, so
only recently I've started calling them by the correct name, to be honest. So the Moog 1, I've only played with it for a very, very short period of time, to be honest. I haven't really gotten into it. I was interested in the Grandmother, but it was a bit limited for me when I had, I've got the Mono Poly, which is a paraphonic synthesizer, one of the first actually. This works much like the Mono Poly. Can you hear this? Yeah. So essentially, this has got 4 voices. So you can play 4 notes at one time. It depends on which. So, for instance, you've got a flat piece of flat surface. Depends on which finger hits first, gets the first oscillator. So it's so if you change all the oscillators to do different things. For instance, if I play the same chord over and over again, you'll hear it changing slightly. And it's essentially which finger hits the first oscillator, things like that. So it's really nice. You can also put it into round robin mode so that the oscillators spin around. This is more based on the Moog modular than something like the classic mini Moog, but it has characteristics of that. It's just that this for me has it's a really versatile piece of equipment. If I can give you an idea, it has a polyphonic sequencer. So if I was to go and play that back for you, it also has a stereo delay from the modular system. And at any point, you can put it back into record mode, and you can do things like ratchets. and ties and rests. So you get the idea. So
Sounds great, Martin.
It gets it, you can really go to town on it. I've not even touched stuff like the modulation. It has a couple of utility banks on it where you can, you know, attenuate signals to get more range, LFO rates, things like that. It has a stereo filter, which is crazy. So you can, and you can parallel the filter, things like that. So it's a really interesting piece of kit. It's very, I think it's a bit of a luxury item, if I'm honest, you know, whereas something like the Prologue is a kind of a workhorse. I use this more than anything, really.
Martin, I just wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
You know how you can just sit down and you can kind of create something very quickly on that synth? How long would it take somebody who got something like that brand new to actually get their head around it? Would it be like months or
I mean,
years?
that's super easy, because then you put it into record mode and you go as long as you're in time, so you know, maybe 8 or 16 32 notes, then essentially it's going to loop, you know. So you can do things like, also you can save your banks and stuff like that. I've not even got into the saving the banks, but it is really nice. Another thing is which is really good, is you don't have to, for instance, you get my, so you don't have to hold it in.
It looks
Hold it
great.
in. And what I tend to do from Cubase, I use Cubase, I'm sure a lot of people use Ableton and Logic, is with this you can, I tend to have it on, I don't have it on hold, and I just set the sequence off by just playing a note, you know, off another MIDI device, for instance, or from the computer, for the length of time I want it for, and just kind of get the rate as close as I can, because it's because you can't sync it. You just got to get it as close as possible. But I've done a lot of remixes by doing sequences. The thing of I've done so much music for such a long time, I get really bored of myself. So I can't just sit here and go, I'm gonna that'll do, I'm gonna make a song with it. It's not interesting enough for me to. I think it's just like, you know, it's the real throwaway. So I need to have things where I can make really interesting, happy accidents happen, you know. So, and I'll go into that in a bit, where, you know, about the kind of keeping the inspiration there and where to find new inspiration and stuff. But, you know, I think people sometimes, you know, I've got an artist on my label called Tomahawk Bang. He's from Arizona, and he's got lots of little pieces of equipment that he uses. And there's a few people around that do this as well. Triangle Man from France, he also does the same thing. It's kind of, how the heck do you actually, you know, do a whole album set with just this stuff and not a computer? Like, where you press a button and it resets everything to the sound set. I don't know how it works. But with these units, you get amazing happy accidents, and I think that's a really exciting part of sound design. You know, you're not bored all the time going, oh god, I can't find a sound, or you've got a MIDI loop running and you're scanning through plugins for hours on end trying to find something that fits. I believe it's much more interesting and exciting if you can play a little bit. I'm not a great player. Play a little bit and then craft the sound around what you're playing. You tend to feel a little bit more, well, I definitely do, connected with the music I'm writing, rather than, like I say, I'll put a wait for the sound. I mean, you're just waiting for something to happen. It's not writing music. So that's, again, things like this bring out the creativity for you and with you, because you work with it. It's not just a keyboard, it's like a tool, you know.
Martin, can I just make a when you're getting something really rhythmic going like what you did there, this is just from my perspective, I find it really inspiring to make me play in more stuff in the spaces, if that makes sense. You know, when you've got that kind of, so that I agree that when you're using things that have kind of motion, you know, in your tracks, like these kind of arpeggiators and stuff like that, I find it really good for, you know, hearing the gaps and then, you know, like, oh yeah, get the next sound up, bam bam. It can be really fast, can't it?
It can, yeah, and also what you've got to be careful is you need to leave some space. I mean, there's a little bit of not an argument, but there's a lot of people say, you know, it's the sound in between sound that makes the music. No, I agree with that to a point, but without the sound, there isn't any music. So it's, you know, you have to leave some space to breathe. Otherwise, your instruments don't have any particular shape in your music, you know. It becomes a wash, which once in a while is a really lovely thing to listen to, but all the time there's no way of picking out particular characteristics of sound, and it doesn't give a song a character in itself. It's just, again, another song which is a wash of sound. So then for me there has to be some sort of give and take with the sound, if you know what I mean. Give loads, get loads of goosebumps going, take it away, so that you can bring it back and do the same again and re-deliver those kind of interesting feelings as you're working.
Yeah. So I've got another question. I've got a
Yes.
question from Michael. He says, "What is it about the Prologue that's so good, Martin?"
The Prologue, well, for one, I don't think it's an overpriced synthesizer. This is a 16-note polyphonic analog synthesizer, and it costs £1,300, which I was quite shocked at, considering the price of a lot of synthesizers out there. Let me give you an example. Although you won't be able to see exactly what I'm doing, you'll be able to see me working a little bit with it. I'll go from a straight sound. So let me just find an empty noise. That's not an empty noise. So this is the internal reset sound. Let me just turn that down a little bit. Essentially, you've got three oscillators. You've got oscillator 1, then you've got oscillator 2. You can hear them phasing against each other because it's analog and they don't ever really get perfectly in tune. Let me just detune that one up, maybe like to a G. So we've got two oscillators doing one note, and then you've got a third oscillator, which is a user oscillator. Now you can either have noise or you can have user, and I've actually downloaded the oscillators from Mutable Instruments Elements Eurorack synth into the user bank, so I can introduce like almost like an FM or bell kind of. I'm not using the filter yet, obviously. Now I'm just going to, there's a knob here, it says main and sub. I'm going to just switch it from main to sub and you'll hear. Sorry, that was, make sure that the sub's turned down. Right, so check. One moment. Sub down. So, here we go. Main, volume's up. Whoops. That's where we were. Then I'm going to just, that's fading from main to sub. I'm now in sub, I'm going to edit sub. You're probably wondering why I'm doing this. That's the sub. That's the main. Together. You've essentially got two synthesizers on top of each other. And you can select to filter the main. or the sub, or both together. And that's the beauty of the value for money, I would say, is that you get 6 oscillator synthesizer, and you can treat each layer completely differently. They do share the effects section on the output, and also it has a low filter compressor as well. For me, I think I had a chat today with Dan JD73, and I remember Dan saying to me ages ago when he was testing the Prologue out for Korg, "Don't buy it, you won't like it, it's too harsh, it's not the kind of sound you like." And I was like, well, I kind of really like the Minilog. Why do you think I won't like this? And anyway, I bought one because my master keyboard had died. I didn't have a master keyboard. I didn't have the Matriarch at the time. And as you can see, I don't really have anything. This isn't velocity sensitive. I had nothing at the time. So I thought, balls to it, I'm going to get the Prologue. And I never looked back. It's a really intricate synthesizer. It's a really interesting piece of kit. It's a really deep piece of kit. It's got massive output. It's really loud. So the noise level that comes out of it's like nothing. And what I forgot to mention is if I go back to a really basic waveform on just, you've got 3 waveforms. You've got saw, you've got triangle, and you've got square. Each one of them's got a wave shaper. So you're not fixed to just the waveforms either. It also has a cross mod depth, which is brilliant because that's something that the Roland Jupiter 6 has that not a lot of other synthesizers have. So if you can, it starts to make it sound like it's fizzing. And people talk about fat. I think it's probably, yeah, like I say, one of the best synthesizers ever made. Totally maybe overlooked by a lot of people as well. So I hope that answers your question, Michael.
And then one more question about the studio side of things, Martin. Yes. Clint was asking, what do you use to power your NS10s?
I use a Samson Servo 170 for my NS10s. I use a Samson Servo 230. I use a 170 for my NS10s. The Servo 170 was, I bought it. It had been fitted with a better power supply, so it's not heavy. It doesn't overheat because the Servo 170s, although Yamaha kind of back in the day used to recommend them, they did blow up a bit and start burning up and setting studios on fire. This has got a new power supply in it, which takes less energy, it doesn't get as hot, etc., etc. So if you do use a Servo 170 from Samsung, I advise that you just pay an extra 60 quid and get someone to bang a brand new power supply in, which is much more efficient. I use the Servo 300 for my my dual concentric tannoys, my 8s behind the ones I showed you, the second one now, just because they're just a bit bigger, and I just feel when I put a bit more power behind them, I don't overdrive them actually, but having that extra power behind them gives them a little bit more of a true sound. I don't know if anyone's ever used dual concentric monitors, but for instance, people that are maybe, I can't afford these monitor speakers, I can't, it gets confusing, and believe me, I'm constantly changing. Tannoy did a hi-fi speaker, which is kind of almost triangular shaped, something 360 I think they're called, and they've got a normal driver and a dual concentric driver. They're incredible monitor speakers, and they're not even put out there as monitor speakers, so it's worth looking at. Tannoy something 360 or 160, I can't remember the exact name. I will find it and let Danny know so I can put it up on the Patreon.
And then one more question
yes?
from Sut was, what was the Creamware model, and is there a go-to synth you use to start tracks with more often than any other?
Yeah, the Creamware model, just for reference, they did 3, and I really like, I think, more than having something like a 2600 or a Mini Moog, I would, because these aren't mine, remember, so I couldn't afford this kind of equipment. I'm just really lucky to look after it for people. If I was going to spend the money, I would get all three. So basically, they made the Creamware Minimax ASB, which is the 12-note polyphonic Mini Moog copy. It's a digital synth. It's not analog, by the way, but it sounds so good. They also made a ARP Odyssey and a Prophet 5. And they also made a case, which is all wood. It was so nice. If you have a look on Google and just type Creamware ASB, you'll find the things you're looking for. They're really rare, but again, they're not expensive. I saved up, I think I had like £500 in the bank or something, and this cost me £750 when I bought it. And I used it on a couple of songs on the album I'm producing now. And unfortunately, something's gone wrong with the brain on this one because it's quite old, so I've got to get it sent off. I think something's gone wrong with the chip. But they're built like a tank as well. They're like so heavy, and it's just rock hard, solid wood sides, solid wood. I mean, have a check.
Looks nice, Martin.
It's the same layout as a Mini Moog, and it's also USB. And, and it's got audio in as well, so you can send signals through the filter. And it's very heavy. It's only small, but it's very heavy. So yeah, the go-to synth when I start a track, I think I always go to my master keyboard. Really, I sometimes start with the modular stuff if I'm a little bit bored. But it can be the thing about you'll hear this from people that use modular synths and stuff. It can be a little bit of a pain in the ass, really, the modular stuff, because you can turn it on one day and it's all glorious and you can get what you want out of it. The next day, your head's just not in it and you've forgotten how to do your signal paths, and it's just a bit of a nightmare. But it is beautiful. I think with this, again, the reason I have this is because I got bored and I needed something to just break the mold a bit, because it's just like, I've played all the chords I know. I'm not musically trained. I just need to kind of get out of the get out of the little trap I was in. So I went down the modular hole. Unfortunately, I've kind of like leveled out now. I'm all right. Don't worry about me. I'm good.
It's common though, isn't it? Some people only make music on modulars.
They do, and it's amazing. A friend of mine who I used to actually release his records, a guy called Tom Kennedy. He used to work with Plaid a bit. You remember Plaid? Mm-hmm. And Tom, he contacted me a few months ago and said, "Oh, I want you to listen to my new music." And he'd been producing music solely on just a dual kind of racking system of modular stuff, sequencing from it, resequencing from it, taking this to there. So essentially, when you finish a song on a modular, you start it, you finish it, you record it, it's over. Because unless you take a photograph and try and remember what you did, it's quite head baffling. So I use most things I just record in, I sample, and then at least I've got the sequences that I wanted, and I save that if for instance I've done a tuned MIDI sequence or something in Cubase and I'm sending it out, I'll save the MIDI sequence just in case one day I have to try and recreate the sound or something like that. But it's laborious. It's work. This is another thing. I don't really use plugins very much. I use Contact and a couple of things every now and again for a bit of degrading and things like that. But otherwise, the sound sources are all a synthesizer, so I do actually use this stuff. But yeah, I think back to the question, it's the Prologue, which kind of it's an all-rounder,
Great. Okay, so yeah, Martin, maybe we could go on to the kind of sequencing part of things now. If you
Absolutely.
wanted to show us some stuff on Cubase or show us a track you're working on, or
well, what I thought I'd do, so that the guys can take maybe something away from this as well, is if I spend maybe 30 minutes throwing something together in Cubase and talking about it as I'm doing it, I can export all the stems at the end and give them away as like a little sample pack if that's cool with everybody.
That sounds fantastic, Martin.
Right,
Yeah.
and I'll just show you, there's a few things. I'm not sure everybody's really au fait with my music. I don't expect everybody to know what I do, but there's a few little like stereo tricks I do. I use a lot of scrubbing. I don't know whether anybody's really aware of scrubbing, because I know when I say it to people, they go, "What are you talking about?" But I'll show you with scrubbing what can. Well, essentially, let's make a little raw house track at like 121 BPM. I'll just make a loop, a 16-bar loop, and we'll just go from there. Maybe just 1 second. See if I can do something in here. If I can do everything off one. I always like it when I can do something. Everything off one synth.
You're host, by the way, Martin. Okay.
I'm host. Right. I'm going to go on to my Cubase.
No sweat. I'm just saying you're host. So.
Right. I'm going to show. So let's have a look. Where am I? So Cubase. Let's have a look. I might switch and what have you, and share computer sound up to my screen. Share for video clip. Here we go. So can everybody see what I'm looking at? See my pool here. And if I just pull up Cubase wherever it's gone. Nope. Let me just import. What I'll do is I'll just import like a kick drum just to get me going. I'm really lazy when it comes to like I've got a lot of samples on my computer, but I tend to just kind of search for stuff. That's nice. Let's take that one. And then I don't know where my Cubase project's disappeared to. It's fallen off the face of the earth. There we go. Right, so can everybody see that? Is that cool? Sweet. Thanks, guys. So let's drop the kick in. So what I tend to, how I program, excuse the pun, is that I tend to paint my beats. I don't like to sequence things too much, and I just find that to have complete like control over what I'm doing at any point is really useful. I'm not relying on a sequence. I'm not really that acid house kind of producer. So if I've got this, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop the volume of the music. Does everyone hear that and hear me all right? Yeah, cool. I'll turn the music up in a bit, and I'll shut my head as well so that you can actually hear what I'm doing. So what we've got going on here, I've just put a kick drum in. It's just a 909 style kick drum. Over 2 bars there. Let
Martin,
me just. Yeah.
You're only sharing the file selector.
You're only on the pool at the minute.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Really?
So I thought that was what you were intending.
No.
When you share, try and select the desktop that has Cubase.
No,
on
I did, but it just wasn't showing up because Cubase. There you go. It just disappeared for a moment. So basically, there's your kick drum pattern. So if everybody can see that, cool. So I don't like long kick drums when I'm making fast music. So if you can see what I'm doing here, I'm just, for instance, you can probably hear that as well, that I'm changing the shape of the kick drum to have a much shorter size here. So, I don't want it dragging out. It's just too much. It's just going to get in the way. But what I would do with this is, for instance, if I was to pull up a very favorite EQ of mine is the GEQ from Waves, by the way. It's a really amazing EQ. It also works kind of in tandem with the spectrum analyzer I showed you earlier. If I put it onto 18 dB depth, I can pull up something like maybe 3140 and a bit of 50 hertz, and that length from the kick drum I've lost, I get the bump and power back by EQing it back in again. So I've got that lovely warm solid kick drum, but without the boom 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 boom. It's more of a boop boop boop. So that's kind of how I do that. Normally, again, to get something going really quickly, again, I'm just going to do this on the fly. I don't know what's going to happen. So if I just do add a MIDI track, the prologue, for instance, if we just throw down a little weird sequence in, let's say D, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's do 8 bars, and then just throw something down, and then I'll start chopping it up. So if I just go, let me get a decent sound so that right, I'll just use this for now. So I'm just going to chop a section of that. I quite like that kind of optimistic kind of loop in that area. So I'll just literally take that section, which is 2 bars. As you can see that the MIDI is just in there. So now I've got this nice loop, this kind of housey loop. What I would do at this point, if I'm happy with it, I'll go with what we've got here. I'll turn the reverb off so we've got this dry for you guys, so you can download it without all the reverb on it. I would add an audio track and I would record what I've put in there. So if I put prologue 1, for instance, whoops, it would help if I could type in, and I just make sure I select the right input. So I've got to set this up again because I've got 2 sound cards going. So we do 5, 6, which is where it's going into. I'm sure you all do this. It's really boring. So what I'm going to get here is, whoops, select the right input. You'll get this. And there we go. I've got 2 bars of what I've recorded in there. Let me just tidy that up very quickly. Sorry if I'm working quickly, I tend to do this at hyper speed. So I'm just going to mute. What I've done there is I've muted the audio, muted the MIDI. So what we're working with now is just audio, which is great because then I can show you something I wanted to show you before. So let me just zoom in on this section here. And I'm just going to just delete the bits out of it so you can see. So I'm just going to work on this bit now. I'll color this in red so that you can see that that's the bit we're working on. This is scrubbing. So on Cubase, I can do this thing where this is my audio window. And I'm sure Logic has this now. This is scrubbing. So I can move the audio around in the window. And I get, again, it's all about happy accidents for me. Finding something I didn't play, so it sounds like something new to me, and it gives me inspiration to continue, you know. So it's so that for me, I'm all over that, like a tramp on chips, as they say. So let's just turn that up a little bit. Right, and also, as you can see, I've kept the MIDI above it, but the MIDI's in the wrong time. You can scrub MIDI, but I don't know where I did it, so this is going to be interesting. Now, while I was talking about the power of the prologue, by the way, now I've put reverb on that just to, you know, it's a kind of sound that needs reverb on. But again, for your benefit, I'm going to just turn it off. You can add it if you wish to later, if you want to play around with these sounds afterwards. And again, I'm just going to record this in. I'm going to call this woo-woo, because that's what it sounds like it's doing. Don't tell me you haven't called your songs stupid names, because we all have. So I'll record that in. So it's a kind of counter melody, really, and counter chord sequence to what we've got below. Let's not forget that that's not, although it's a really interesting sound, that's not our main. This is our main, okay? Now, those of you who do know my music, do you want me to turn this up a little bit? Is it okay? Can everybody hear the music and my voice all right? Looks like Vincent's in the studio. He's on his big speakers. He can tell me.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah?
I think it's okay, Martin. I mean, the music's a little bit quieter than your voice, but to be honest, that's probably better.
Yeah, really. That's good. I just want to make sure people can hear
I think it's totally cool, Martin.
Cool. All right, here we go then. So I'm going to concentrate on the one that's highlighted black and red there. And for me, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I like the muted sound of it. It's not fully filtered. It's not open. It's kind of in the middle. So it's giving you a richness. You're going to get a bit of everything. I would go for a degradation kind of thing on this, if that's a word. So, for instance, let's use degrader, which I really like. Let me just get the default. Here we go. Right. We need to put the bit depth up because we don't want any of that background noise. And I don't want any saturation. I just want the sample rate to drop a bit. And as if you can see this, everybody, I'm going to just be really reckless and just whack the EQ up the top. Just what I'm getting is something like maybe a little bit more of a radio sound. Right, I'm going to put the sample rate up a little bit now. What I've got is like a little bite on the top now. And I would put something like, let's put H delay. If anybody hasn't got H delay, you just need to buy this plugin because it's incredible music, and I'll show you now why. For those that have got this in stereo, good for you. And then if you wanted to maybe spread that out a little bit, I use something like a convolution reverb. Just to situate the sound a little bit, maybe drop the reverb, the delay down a little bit more.
Martin, maybe turn the music up a little bit. Is that cool?
Yeah.
It's a little bit distant for me.
You're a bit distant. So there we go. So now what I've done is if I solo that, I've got a really lovely little soundscape there, but I've still got this energy of this punch, you know, that the sequence has given us. Now another thing I do, my friend PC.
Martin, sorry to interrupt again. Is it possible that you've not shared the audio on the computer?
It's unlikely, but let me just check.
Share computer sound?
I did, yeah. I've also got my speakers on, so I can put
no, it just sounds quite far away, that's all. So, but I'm just checking.
Far away.
Sorry.
Always no, I'm joking.
Fidelity is everything, Martin.
Let me just check this, okay?
It's just such good music. It's frustrating if it's not really loud, you know.
Well, I'm glad you can hear music through your headphone through that, because I can't. No, I can't hear that. Let me just come back to you then, 1 second. Let me just check everything's working. So you can hear my voice clearly through the microphone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
No. No. No, nothing there. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got you.
Cool.
Just double checking because I don't want it to feedback, so I'll just put my headphones on. Sorry, guys. So back, where were we? Right. So music-wise, you can hear all this clearly now. Is that good for you, Danny? Danny?
Yes, sounds good.
Thanks, bud. Alexander comes in to help. Thanks, mate. Right, so I'm going to go back to this. So my friend PC always asks me about my hi-hats. I have a specific hi-hat sound that I'm going to share with you. It's from a really old sample CD, and it's called SS17, and it sounds like this. I love it. It's such a tink. I really like the sound of it. So if I was to do something like a 16 pattern, a 16 note pattern within a bar, let me just quickly, again, I'll just do quantize. You can see I do tend to paint my beats. I'm sure it's...
So we are not seeing the desktop, so we are not sharing.
Okay, hold on. Wait, because I had to go back. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
right. Sorry, guys, because I'm back in and out all the time. Right, here we go. So if everybody can see that, that's great. So this hi-hat's going to be just really boring because it's just, 16 pattern bar. I tend to then duplicate it. I will delay the channel by something like, I don't know, 22 milliseconds. So you get almost like a flanging effect. And then I will pan one to the left hard and one to the right hard. Maybe the one to the one that is kind of leading isn't panned so much because it needs to kind of have a little bit more like center direction. Not just that, on the second one I would maybe, because if you put that into mono you will get a flamming effect, is to maybe put the pitch a slight pitch on it. So just to drop the pitch maybe 1.5 tones or something like that. But it gives a real nice shuffle. I'm going to add some shakers. I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to be in and out of different cameras, so please tell me if it's kind of... Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. You can all see me again. Hello. So I use, I've got a really old vintage rain stick. And I like this because it's wide. And that means if I record it in stereo, I get a really nice stereo feel to what I'm doing. So let me just go back into Cubase again. You'll see me, not Cubase, so just bear with me. So I'm going to record this in now, just very quickly. I have to turn these speakers down so you might get a cleaner sound. There we go. There we go, and I'm going to come back and share my screen again with you. Here we go, and I show you what we've got. Share audio. I'm all new to this, guys. Thank you for bearing with me. So here we go. So that's the shaker part in there. Again, sometimes I scrub the shaker to find. Sometimes I scrub the shaker to find maybe a different. Different variation, so I've recorded a few loops there, so if I didn't want, just scrub the audio to a different part. It's quite nice actually, the second part picks up a little bit faster than the first part. Another really nice thing is if I was to change the output of this MIDI part, can I just guarantee everybody can still see my Cubase screen? Yeah, thanks, Danny. So the MIDI part, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm just going to mute the top one so that we don't have that interfering. This one, for instance, I'm going to go inside, and the notes I've got here, I'm going to get rid of all the other notes. And I'm going to keep these guys. I'm going to drop them down an octave, and I'm going to put them through the matriarch to see if it works. Just going to give you an example of something. I'll just flick back quickly to show you
Just
what was happening.
Say, Martin, sorry,
Yeah.
because you've taken it from the same sequence. It's totally in key, isn't it? And then it's also reacting well with the original part because it's been generated from that, right?
Exactly. Can you see me now? Yeah. So essentially what was happening there is, can you remember the sequence we did earlier? That was still locked in. So if I it's still in there, it's still doing its thing. So when I played the sequence from Cubase, it was still playing that. So if I was to, just let me turn it off and on again just to clear the sequence. For instance, and then go back to that. So I'm just going to select a couple of notes there. I'm going to go back to Cubase now, bear with me. Now, no one knows how this is going to come out. I've got to also reconnect that because I turned the keyboard off. There we go. It's only playing the first note, but what I'll do is I'll take the second note, the third note, sorry, and extend it so it catches one of the sequence notes. Everything, one moment, sorry. That's not catching the sequence there for some reason. Don't know why. Anyway, sounds all right. So what I'll do with that, I'll take exactly the same notes. Again, I'm not really writing music here apart from throwing in those few notes at the beginning. Is maybe take these and throw them up, you know, let's say an octave, and just drop the notes here in a random place that, you know, dodges some of the other notes, and maybe just shorten that one. So I don't know what it's going to sound like until I play it back. Kind of sounds all right. So essentially, this is kind of how I build new songs. If I'm doing something, you know, electronic, for sure, it gets, you know, messy and complicated when I start plugging other things in. it's just recording and playing back really, and chopping and changing and doing the best you can with what you've got in front of you, and hoping that because I think a lot of people I've spoken to get really bogged down and frustrated by trying too hard, and it's the trying too hard that kills the creativity. Sometimes messing about is all you need to do to get the job done. I've not done anything serious here, and it kind of sounds all right. I had no idea. I thought I might do it in D because it's an easy key to play in, but you can break that right down to where we started. We've affected this, and we've given this sound, for instance, some treatment. See if we can bring it out a little bit brighter there. Maybe if we put the delay over onto the woo woo as well.
That's great, Martin.
Yeah, you get the idea. And as you can probably see, I mix as I go as well. So one thing that I find is when people contact me and say, "Oh, can you mix my track down?" I'm like, "Have you not mixed anything down yet?" Well, no, I've just kind of written the music. I don't know how people can write electronic music without kind of mixing it in situ, Again, I don't know, maybe people can open my eyes to that. It's something I cannot continue a piece of music unless it kind of sounds all right, So that's the basics of how I kind of get to grips with it. Obviously, if I'm working with singers or I've got lots of parts and people send me stems for strings or horns or vocals and stuff, it gets, again, a bit more complicated. And especially working with different types of music like soul music and stuff, I'll go over and use the Rhodes and, get some lovely, nice, soft, succulent sounds out of things like that. But then you're going a little bit more acoustic. But again, if I do that, I'll work with what I've just done on here. So they kind of start to work together and just, textural layers and, like I say, leaving a little bit of space for things to move around. I think, to be fair, the song that I've kind of played with here hasn't got much space in it. Sounds housey. It's just full, maybe it doesn't, and again, maybe isn't so characterful because of that.
I just wanted to pick up a little bit about what you said about the mixing, Martin.
Yeah.
I've often found that it's almost like, if people haven't been able to mix something while they were writing it, or, it's not easy to, it sometimes probably means it's not actually kind of the right choices with the sounds and the music. It shouldn't be really difficult to mix a track down, should it? If the idea is quite a strong, simple idea.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's right. Maybe, again, it comes back to that. And I've done it myself, where you sit there and you've got your MIDI sequence and you've picked a plugin and you're scanning through the presets to try and find something that might fit to. That's just like, leaving your tea bag in your tea too long. It stews your sound. You've got to really be more selective about how you use your equipment, and a sampler can do everything. When I did my first album, it was all done on a sampler. That's it, and an O1W keyboard and a DAT machine. And it's it's amazing what you can really do if you limit yourself as well. And I think that's a really good. I've got a record label called Less Than 10, which is built for that reason alone, as to how good a piece of kind of electronic music can somebody make limited to 10 running processes. A kick drum, a hi-hat, I want to put a reverb on that. That's another running process. Bounce it. Oh, now my hi-hat's stuck with reverb on it. Deal with it. Work with it. That kind of thing. So I think you're right in saying it's a sound selection thing, and you have to be, I think you have to be in the right mindset when you go in the studio to have openness to what you're doing, and listen to a lot of music. and sample other people's music. If you're in the initial stages of making a piece of music, there's nothing saying you can't be inspired and borrow ideas from other people's productions. You know, as long as they don't exist in the final thing, you've learned from something on your own.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wondered if you had anything else that you wanted to show us, Martin, with that, or have you got any kind of go-to plugins that you can recommend? Or
I can show you a few things I really like, actually, which again are like, I'm not really. I've got UAD and I've got the soft tube, and I've got a few things that I use. I use a fair bit of Waves stuff as well, but again, I'm not really 100% hot on that. It's more.
Could you share the screen, Martin?
Yeah, I'm going to do that now. It's more to do with the tools of the job, if you know what I mean. So, for instance, what's a good idea? Let's get the woo-woo sound because it's kind of clean. Let's take the delay off of it. And then we'll just use that as a kind of reference sound. I'll just turn it down a bit so it's just in the background. I'm sure people can hear it. So there's a company called Clevgrand, and they did this lovely plugin called DAW Cassette, which is really cheap. It's like a few quid, and it all, you know, with anything, input gain drives the unit harder. Whatever, but it's really good. It's just really good fun. You can check the motor quality, so you can hear it starting to lose its mind a bit. It has different noise levels, so you've got high noise, low noise, and off. So if you put it on low noise, and you've got the tape types, the different types of magnetic tape. You've got chrome, metal, and normal. I actually have a tape deck. I bought a Bush tape deck brand new last year because I still like recording my stuff to tape and then sampling it back into Contact. You've got head quality here. So the way that the signal's being read, it's not so much a saturation, but like it kind of starts to miss things. And the tape quality itself will just... And there's a few nice presets of different types of tapes and the reproductions of them. So that's really good. They do loads of wicked plugins, by the way, everybody. They're a really good company. Also, Audio Thing. I got Wires a couple of weeks ago. If nobody's seen this yet, you should just get this. It's so much fun, and it's nuts. So it's just really horrible. So essentially, this is a tape machine that was used in the Soviet Cold War as a recording device for aeroplanes, or you know, for offices and stuff like that. Let me just turn these down to give you an idea of what it is. So it's got a hiss. It has a motor for the tape, which is really cool. It has a start and stop, which I love. The wow and flutter on this is my favourite out of all of the things that have. Well, there's a tape machine that I like as well, but this has got drops, so it starts to like really drop out badly on the tape. Nasty clicks, as you would imagine, and a tilt EQ, which is kind of, you know, deeper there, brighter there. It also has devices like a microphone and speaker inputs. Output, sorry, and it has an echo, which is amazing. I like that a lot. It's really good fun. So they're like the, you know, the fun kind of things. I've got the Sound Toys stuff, which is really nice. Is the crystallizer from Sound Toys, if people have or haven't got that one. It's kind of it's a delay that works on resampling slices of your sound, and you can choose the size and the pitch of the segment. So if we make the slice very small, but you can change the pitch. So if we do like an octave, like 12, and the recycle thing's like a feedback. But as if I turn the splice up, it makes the sample it takes bigger. Which I think is really cool. And then you've also got the delay, the actual delay time as well that it works with. If I stop the sequence, that's just the plugin itself just doing its crazy stuff. And you can resample, as you can hear. So, you know, as far as toys, they're like the sound noise devices I like to go to make silly sounds. When it comes to other things like, again, there's another thing called Freeamp from Clev do this Freeamp plugin. It's a brilliant drive. It's got a really nice soft clip on it. Anything like a guitar or a Rhodes or a piano or something like that, it's really amazing on that. Works nice on bass as well. Phase Motion is from Audio Thing. Really interesting phaser. These things are, you know, they're affordable toys that do, I think, sometimes a much better job than the expensive things, to be honest. So I'm not one for, you know, going to Waves and buying a phaser or something like that. I think I'd rather go to an independent and give them my few pounds, because it you know, it's nice for them to feel the benefit. I do, like I mentioned before, there's a few plugins I use for mixing which I really stand by, and I might get, you know, judged because of this, because I've got a lot of things like APIs, you know, SSLs, pull text, the kind of industry standard kind of stuff. But I really love some of these random boxes that people have made. So, for instance, this is the high range stuff from Abbey Roads. You won't hear it on this sound, but essentially this kind of emphasizes top end. And it's fixed to 8K, but again, because of the unit it's designed on, it gives the sound of the unit. They do a rack and a box as well, which you've got different frequencies.
Martin, can you go to participants, please, and let in Zoid?
Yes, of course. Hold on a second.
I can't do it because I'm not host.
Zoid.
Or Danny.
Admit Daniel Jacobson.
Yeah, that'll be him.
Joining. Is that okay?
Yeah, brilliant.
There's just one person waiting, no problem. So yeah, so essentially it's called the Abbey Road Brilliance Pack. So it's nice. You can, you know, 2.7. You can hear it on that a little bit. On vocals, it is absolutely, I think it's essential for top end vocal kind of mixing and stuff like that. It just gives such a bite to things without it being ugly. Like I said before, my favorite EQ go-to, I might get judged on it. It's just a graphic EQ, but I absolutely love it. It's the modern version on the GEQ from Waves, and basically it works alongside my Audioscope 2813. So 800 hertz, I can see every now and again something there's going. I can just cut that out, and it's really sharp. It hardly interferes with the next band. And when it comes to doing tweaks on final mixes or or fixing a problem in a particularly gnarly sound, it's invaluable for me. It's such a go-to. I was asked on Facebook about reverbs and stuff like that. I use in the UAD, I use the precision reflection engine a lot, like a lot. This is you can probably hear it already. It's really subtle, and Ali Shaheed Muhammad, as you all know from a very famous hip hop band, has got a preset in here which is, I'm just going to put that on full mix there. You can hear how it's kind of thrown it back. That on a vocal which sounds really dry, just situate it beautifully, and you can just even make it even smaller, and it just gives something a bit of space. But it's good on snare drums, hi-hats, you know. And then I like convolution reverbs. So most, like Logic and like I said, I'm using Cubase. I'm still on Cubase 9 because I'm old school. But a convolution reverb for me is like really nice to get the sound I need. Oh, I've lost my, hang on a second, it's disappeared onto the screen. Here it is. So no, I can load, as far as I remember how to do this, I can load pretty much any sound into this. Let's have a look. If I look at loading in what's this, verses, is that going to be some, let me have a look at that. Chorus lead. I need to find something that's kind of percussive. That's not the right one. You can load anything into this basically. So that's the convolution reverb working with that particular sound essentially. So if you had like, it's difficult. Let me just load a beat in, for instance. Let's have a look. Let's go jazz session, drums and percussion. Let's get a drum loop. Let's just load a drum loop in. So you can see all of the peaks and stuff like that. Essentially, that's the drum beat underneath. And I'm using that as a reverb source. So that's really nice. You know, for instance, if you clap your hands or burst a bubble in a, if you burst a bubble or clap your hands in a, let me just get you back on the screen there. If you clap your hands in a large space, or the best one is to burst a balloon, and you just get the. You can take that sample. It only has to be mono. It doesn't have to be stereo, and you can put it into your convolution reverb and almost regenerate that space that you're in, if you know what I mean. So it's useful. But I've come up with some really nice, bizarre, like burial-esque reverbs by putting, you know, little phrases of voice in there, little spoken word things and stuff, and it's just weird how it reflects itself off of that stuff inside. It's nice. So there are a few little go-tos that I use. That, you know, it's just, again, it's all about trying to create inspiration when you're out of it. You know, especially this year's been a bit of a tough one for everybody. It's not like I'm just going to go around my friend's house and listen to loads of music and have some beers and talk about music and get inspired. It's been impossible this year. So
sorry, Martin, how have you found the year?
It's been odd. I really missed seeing my friends, if I'm honest. It's the biggest thing. I mean, I'm in my house with my family. That's great. I've got a lovely family, and I've got my studio and I've got my work. But it's just, you know, that lack of seeing your friends is a thing. You know, I'm sure we all go quite long periods of time without seeing our families, you know, like visiting aunties and uncles and what have you, but it's not the same when it's your friends, because your friends are kind of your immediate family these days, aren't they? So that's the thing that's got to me. Otherwise, it's just been the same. I'm not that bothered about touring the world, doing DJ gigs anymore. I'm quite happy sitting in my studio making music and running my business and making people, money, essentially. So it's not been that difficult, but it's emotionally, it's just a bit hard not seeing your friends, and I think everyone can probably appreciate that,
Yeah. Well, I think doing stuff like this, Martin, it seems to be like, sort of building communities and things. And you were going to talk a little bit about that, weren't you? About, how community works in music and how, over the years, I guess you've built these strong connections, and you keep working with them, don't you?
Yeah, it might not. I mean, it won't affect everybody, because I'm sure out of the majority of people on here, we've got people that have got their heads totally screwed on. But I come across people all the time that don't know how to kind of, let's say, represent themselves. A bit of backstory. I've been releasing music since 1995. And I've struggled with it all myself as well. The whole, doing DJ gigs in front of hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people, and then back to nothing, and wondering where it's all gone, what it all means, etc. I find when I go on the internet these days that people have gotten, the majority of people, let's say, so I'm not going to say everybody, the majority of people haven't got any, let's say, decent internet candor, if you know what I mean. It's, for instance, if you post something on the internet, someone leaves a comment, it's really harsh. It's a bit ridiculous, really, because you wouldn't say that to someone in the flesh. Just being on the internet, it has the same weight when it lands on somebody. So I've been kind of monitoring it quite heavily to see how people are behaving on the internet, because it seems to be the place that everything is happening now. When we were first releasing music, that we didn't have the internet to carry us. It was save up, pay a PR person to promote your music, and hopefully to get a review in a magazine. If not, it'd be in a chart in DJ mag, maybe, if you're lucky, once a year maximum. But it would help. It would help. It would definitely help you get there. These days, and back then, you had to be out working and being the popular artist in the public arena, not all the time, but only when you were performing or you had something to promote. These days, everyone's in it all the time, even if they haven't got anything to promote. Us as well. So I think that, I'm a little bit all confused about it at the minute. I'm trying to kind of keep my distance and do as I'm told, if you know what I mean, and behave a little bit better. So it's been interesting this year watching the internet, because obviously everyone's kind of forced to use it more. It was being used a lot anyway, but everybody, people have been forced to kind of go there as their go-to for their business, for their artistry, for their, let's say, those that like to be looked at, whatever. It's constant. And I think it's a bit dangerous, really. And people need to maybe take a little bit of a step back from it and go to work and manage their time on the internet properly, in order to, get the right attention for actually doing some work, not just being there.
Martin, I just wanted to ask you, do you feel like you've had to sort of operate in a different way then from the pre-internet era, when things like record stores had a lot more weight? As you said, you had to go out there and do things in public, you had to play well in clubs, people that weren't there didn't get to see it. And do you feel like nowadays, with the whole smoke and mirrors aspect of things, has that affected the way that you go about your business?
I think I've adjusted to it gently over time, to be honest. I don't think it's kind of been a smack in the face. It's not been like, oh my God, I've got to change everything. It's been a, wow, this is a lot different than it used to be, for sure. Things like, going about things the correct way, getting your product ready and releasing it rather than just shouting about something you're doing on the internet and then never coming to fruition, just being another part of the noise, for instance. You couldn't do that back then because there wasn't a platform for it. You were classed as the annoying person in the club if that was the case. Do you know what I mean? Like him that never shuts up. I think I was that guy for quite some time. But you know, yeah, we were both responsible for that. But I think, you know, it has changed massively because, you know, back in the day, your distributors wouldn't press your records if they weren't good enough. So I've still got that in my body and in my mind where I know that everything I do has to be of a certain quality, you know, which is really hard because it's really difficult to be your own critic. But at the same time, I think it's the best critic you can have if you can be your own critic. The unfortunate need for likes, the unfortunate need for plays, the unfortunate need for this and the unfortunate need for all these other things to balance yourself out against somebody else seems to be a little bit of a losing battle. You know, I think we are all put on this planet to do what we are all put on this planet to do. And we shouldn't ever, and there's nothing wrong with aspirations, believe me. I'm constantly looking up to people and thinking, oh, I want to work with that guy, I want to work with that guy. But we can't sit on our backsides expecting the world to drop to their knees, especially with the kind of music that especially myself or yourself writes, which is majority of the time really kind of avant-garde and a bit odd, really. Let's put it like that. Yeah, all right, deep house isn't what it used to be, especially if you look at that playlist on Spotify, which has got 950,000 followers. It's like top 10 pop hits. Which is a little bit upsetting, you know, when you see things like that. The conglomerates have decided that that's what deep house is, and everyone follows it because they should, because it's got a lot of followers. Follow. It's all like this kind of everyone should be popular thing. The popularity kind of contest never used to exist, and again, that's another thing that has changed. In a way of releasing music, it's not as simple as I've sat for a year, or one has sat for a year. You've all sat for a year making an album, for instance, and then you pay £2,000 or €2,000 or $2,000 to then promote that release and put it out there. What happens then is we all look for acceptance. All of a sudden, we never used to do that before. All we wanted to do was a review in DJ magazine. And that was enough because we knew that it would be seen by enough people to move on to the next project, to get on with it. And I believe that that's a thing, you know, it's, I mentioned to you the other day when we were doing the test out, this is a job. And I think I've always looked at it as a job rather than, you know, look at me, who am I? I've got lots of records out. It doesn't matter because there's not that many people listening to it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you've got to really be relevant and with yourself in order to be like relevant in your own space in want of a better expression. It's a bit of a head mash, that one is, but I feel like, you know, you've got to get up in the morning and go to work. If you work really hard, you should see something for it. That's how I see it, you know, rather than I'm just going to do another post today and, you know, we all do it. I do it. But I don't expect anything for it. But I know people that do, and it's a little bit sad, really. It's not fair.
I think the point that you made, Mark, I've just had an idea, which you were kind of saying earlier, is in the olden days, you know, getting records released and getting, you know, like Love in the Record Store and things like that. That was it, wasn't it? It was like, you know, if Charles bought your record, you were like, oh, I've made it, you know. But the problem nowadays is I think that people have created this whole thing of like, you know, the most ridiculously overblown kind of responses to very mediocre music, which make everybody else think, oh, I've got to get that, you know, but that's been completely artificially generated. So it's almost like we've lost this kind of thing where just getting a record out or just getting a review in Mixmag was like that, you'd made it, you know what I mean? Now you've got to have the cover and, you know, you've got to have all these people saying that they want to be you. And I think that's maybe part of the issue, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But I think that kind of manufactured aspect is bled into all scenes now, you know. manufactured music used to be top, the top 40 charts around the world. Now it's kind of depending on how many likes you've got on the internet. It that for somehow relates to your music. And I think it should be the other way. I think the like button should be removed from the internet. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, so that we can all just get on and make the bloody tunes. But back to what you were saying, Danny, about communities and stuff like that. This, what you're doing here, and these nice fellas up here, building a community is really important. I built a really nice community when I was younger, yourself included in that. I had, very luckily, Charles Webster was kind of my mentor. He didn't really have a lot of people, so I was very lucky to have that guy in my life. I was, making friends overseas because I'm a geek and I like pen friends, so I met Fred Everything, and then got chatting to James Curd, and I got, chatting to this guy in Paris, and met this guy from Japan, and you build up a kind of circle of friends. You're all each other's muses, in effect. You give each other inspiration, and you want validation from only those people, because it's those people that can tell you if you're good or shit, and that's okay, because they are being constructive no matter what. And I think having a community around you is really, really super important. Like, I don't see my friends. That's the thing that kills me. My designer is one of my very, very dear friends, Stuart. I've not seen him since February. And he's had, unfortunately, he's had COVID twice. He was really ill the first time, not so bad the second time. But then there's people like Ross I've not been able to see, my bass player. He's been really ill with COVID. Don't really want to see these guys, to be honest, now, because just in case I catch something that does or doesn't exist. Anyway, I'll leave that open for the people. But it's not being able to invite people to the studio, for instance, not being able to sit down and listen to your recent productions with your close friends to see what they think of them, things like that. It's not the same. It's not the same. There's a human thing missing at the minute, and I think that's, this year has killed off the community vibe for me a little bit, which is hyper important in my work, because I've been doing it for such a long time that a long time ago I realized this was all about work. It is my job, and the friends that you have around you and your family, as you start to grow up, you decide that this is going to be me for the rest of my life. I better make it work. So community vibe is just being killed off this year. That's a massively important thing for me, in answer to your question. Massively.
Yeah, I think that it's really important for especially younger producers, or producers that maybe haven't had so many records out, to have a safe space, and a place where someone who's maybe a little bit more experienced, or, has a different take on things, can give them, positive, feedback, or kind kind of criticism. Yeah. So Martin, I just wanted to ask you, because a lot of the people in the group haven't actually had a record out yet. Some have, but some haven't. And I just wanted to know, it seems to be like that's one of the goals for a lot of people, is to either set up a label or to release a record. You've run lots of labels over the years, and you are very experienced in that capacity. So I just wanted to ask you about, have you got any kind of pieces of advice about people starting their own imprints, and then also for getting signed to a label, maybe some ways to build up a relationship with a label so that it's not just a cold email,
For sure. What I'll do, I'll just kind of run through, and then if people want to throw some questions at me, and I can have maybe a one-to-one chat or something. So these days, I think it's really important to be an independent artist. I run record labels, but my record labels are run the way I want to be treated by other record labels. So my artists are all very happy. But still, I am an artist on my record label, and I give myself exactly the same deal as I give the majority of other people. One thing that I really think is super important, and I stand by the guys, is Bandcamp. I think Bandcamp is a mega, mega important thing. It used to be SoundCloud to get heard, but SoundCloud, I was a beta tester for SoundCloud when it first started. So I've been with them since day one, and testing it out, and the whole changing the messaging system and all that kind of stuff. The good thing about SoundCloud is if you want to upload things like, snippets of your work, it is a place that has a lot of users. That if you follow other people and repost other people's music, you have great likelihood that they will do the same. There is a kind of, there's still a community vibe about it, even though it is an actual shop now. It's a streaming service. Bandcamp is really amazing, and I'll tell you why I love Bandcamp so much. Because I hate record shopping. I always have. I love record shops. I love being in there. I love listening to music. I love being told you should listen to this. But I hate digging through records. It's the most soul-destroying thing I've ever done in my life. I just doing that and going, that looks nice. I've got no idea. I just haven't got. I'm really impatient. That's why. I'm an impatient person. I don't have those kind of, I'm going to go for a coffee and then I'm going to slowly go through some records and the record. Nah, it doesn't work. I'm like, give me the records. I'm going to go home and play them. That's what I want to do. Bandcamp's like a record shop, but without the digging factor. It's really cool. Essentially, you follow. So, for instance, as a punter, as a shopper, Martin has an account there. And I follow loads of people like Kev Beadle, Kid Funk, Charles Webster, whatever, and maybe about 30 people. And I follow them for the reason is that when they buy music, once a week or whatever it is, once a month, I get a message from Bandcamp to say the people you follow have bought these music, and I trust these people. I trust their judgment. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to check these out. And I end up buying loads of music that's really amazing that I've never heard, never, ever thought about looking for. And I find a world of brilliant, inspirational kind of sound. That's the reason I really, really love it. As a punter, as a shopper, as a customer, for instance. As an artist, I love it because, you walk away with practically 85% of your income. You have to deal with PayPal fees. Everyone does these days. That's fine, whatever. But if I can tell you all now, if you sell something for $2 on TrackSource, by the time the label pays you, you're going to see about 20 pence, 15 to 20 pence, dependent. I'm not going to go into details because that's not very fair. But but in relation to iTunes, you get about the same. So the label sees about between 30 and 40p, depending on where you are. Go for it.
Sorry, Martin, I was just going to say, is it fair to say then that you think there's just too many middle people nowadays in dance music / digital dance music?
No, not necessarily. No, I'll get to that because that's important as well. I think it's important, and you probably notice that distributors don't disallow the majority of artists having their own shop. You can sell your music without having to distribute it through them. Bandcamp is one exception, and it's really cool. And with Bandcamp, it's really nice because you can build up your platform. You can build up your followers over time. You've got to get in and mingle. You have to mingle. We all did it back in the day, but that was in shops and clubs and wherever. These days, it's online. Still got to mingle. You've got to get in there and get to know people and message and chill and leave a comment, and that's a good place to do it. I'm not saying Facebook. I'm not saying Twitter. I'm not saying Instagram. I'm saying Bandcamp. It's also really nice with Bandcamp because the artists have got pretty much full autonomy over what they do. It's really lovely to be able to go, I finished a beat last night. I'm going to design a sleeve. I'm going to put it up on Bandcamp. Done. As a label, I have a label Bandcamp, and my artists have their own Bandcamps. And I plug into my artists and the releases they have on my label. My label gets paid for them, and it goes on their deal. So they get paid twice a year, as they normally do through my royalty system. Their Bandcamp sales go into it. It doesn't affect the releases that they put up themselves. That's another really good thing. So that shop is really dynamic, very modular. It's really nice. So I honestly believe that for those that haven't had a record out yet, the Bandcamp's a really good first start. Talking about imprints, setting up a record label, trying to get a distribution deal, etc. There are many options. There's lots of kind of do-it-yourself distribution websites, which you get, 100%, but you pay £100 a year, so you're not getting 100% because you're paying for a service. And then you have got distributors starting with companies like Label Works and moving up to companies like Believe Digital, etc., who are owned by majors. So what distributors do require before giving a new record label an option of a distribution deal is a release schedule. So you have to have some releases laid out in front of you, between 3 and 5 releases, so that they can see that there's a future in what they're going to invest their time and effort in setting up an account with, if you know what I mean. So then you're not just go, I want to put a tune out. You're never going to get a distribution deal just like that, unless it's like phenomenal. So that's the other one. And then labels. I'm all for. I work with lots of labels. I work with Sonar Collective. I work with Local Talk. I work with lots of labels, remix-wise, that I do business with as well. So they're not just paying me; they pay me a royalty instead of a fee, for instance, things like that. And I'll get onto something else in a minute that's really super important that people should never overlook. So I think that signing your music over to a record label, especially early on, is. A lot of people might disagree with me because they've had bad experiences or they've heard of people that have had bad experiences. I had a terrible experience running Mantis at the end where my business collapsed because of a bad business partner. Let's just leave it at that. Hence why I run my business how I want to be treated, if you know what I mean. So I expect that kind of level of simplicity and trust from any label I work with, and majority of them are like that, to be honest. A lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't give your music to record labels, they take 50% and don't do anything for you. Yeah, if the record label doesn't do anything for you, then you should have a pretty good inkling that you shouldn't sign your music to them in the first place. A record label with a track record, the majority of people that want to put their music on that record label is because they want to be related to that brand. So, for instance, when Matt asked me to do I didn't even have Foxtooth at the time, but when Matt asked me to do a release on Local Talk, I was like, yeah, I want to put a tune out on Local Talk, killer. So I wrote Foxtooth, put it out. We had a great time, really, really lovely experience, and they looked after me really nicely. There's no problem there. Have 50% of my income, I don't care. They work really hard. It's fine. So it's how you perceive your situation. I do believe that having an independent output, no matter if you have a record label of your own or you are signed to a record label, is really important, though, because it gives you an artistic freedom to do whatever the hell you want at any time. If you want to write an ambient, glitchy piece of work, then do it and put it out on Bandcamp and, do the best way you can. If you've got a record label with with a small like DIY distributor, you can still do all the back-end Spotify stuff and pitch your music to Spotify. You can still do all the Apple Music stuff and pitch your music to Apple. So you've got all that option at hand. I think it feels like a lot of work, but if you really want it, it's not. I'm actually really interested in this stuff because I'm totally geeky about it. And I also really, I think a lot of people think that the music industry is a little bit of a black art and a bit of a mysterious place. It's not at all. You just need to speak to the right people and they'll explain it to you. On that, which is really random, I have 79 artists on my record label, my main record label. And I would say that about 70% of them don't have a publishing deal with anybody or anything or any collection company. They aren't signed up to a performing rights society, nor are they signed up to a society that collects neighbouring rights, which is the performance side of things, as in I played the banjo or the flute on a record. which is really seriously scary for me. Now, every time it happens, that's why I've got no hair, because I pulled it all out. It frightens me. It frightens the shit out of me, because I'm like, you missing out on so much money, especially the guys that have got records out already. There's money. I didn't have a deal with the PPL. I can't remember when I signed up. It must have been nine or so years ago. And before that, not a lot of my recordings had been registered with them anyway. A few old ones. My first check was £4,500, and it had just been sat there. And if someone didn't say to me, you need to join the PPL, it would have just disappeared over time, and I would never have collected it. So one of my things is the PPL, essentially the Phonographic Performance Licensing company. They collect money off your public performances, but for your actual instrumentation performance. For instance, like I say, if you've played an instrument, or you've done backing vocals, or you've played nose triangle, whatever instruments there are out there. Point being, if you've played something on any recording, be it a remix, be it a collaboration, a cover version, whatever it is, as long as that recording has been registered by the rights holder, you as a performer can claim against it and get your royalties from it. Now, if that gets used on a Nike or a Coca-Cola commercial, you're going to be quids in, so don't miss out on it. So that's really important for me, to make sure that people I know, or even just people I don't even work with, I make sure that they've got their stuff locked with that. Making sure you've got a publisher or someone that's going to assist you in collecting your mechanical royalties. Your tiny percent that comes off your sales, it still adds up at the end of the year. And your PRS or other companies around the world that collect on the performance side of things, like your music being played on the radio or TV, or in a mall, for instance, the small cut you get from blanket deals there. So all that money adds up to lining your cupboards with tins of food at the end of the year, so it's really important. That's a massive thing for me. And I know this is where I get really boring, and I think people end up thinking they want to put the phone down on me when I'm having business chats with them, because I've got all my stuff locked down, and I'm feeling the benefit of it. It's not a great deal. It's not a great deal all the time. It's actually quite dire sometimes, but it's dire is better than nothing, So with that, you've got to have that stuff set up. That's down to the person. That's down to not the record label. That's down to the person. If you are a record label, you are essentially going to be a rights holder at some point of some recordings. So you need to make sure that you're set up with the neighbouring rights companies, so you can register those recordings, so that the other performers can claim against them. So that's really boring. I'm very sorry, everybody.
No, I just wanted to add to that my stuff's not perfect, but it's, I'd say, maybe 50-60% perfect. And getting those checks, getting when you're skint and you get like maybe, I don't know, a few £100 or occasionally a few £1,000, it's amazing. It's because, like Martin says, that's money that you wouldn't have got if you hadn't have just registered those tracks, or done the little bit of life admin, basically.
The PPL, or like I said, it's different in different countries. The neighbouring rights, that term is carried through the world. Neighbouring rights is 6 years backdated as well. So it's not like, if you're just starting out, it's not an immediate rush that you need to get it sorted, but it's definitely something that one needs to get put in place before 6 years after, because anything that you have generated in that time, especially if you're with a distributor, they'll put your music through companies like Play.com, and Play.com service the malls in America, for instance. So anything that's kind of summery and or any kind of holiday music, or any kind of music that fits into a season, they're all over that. They'll play it in the malls all the time, and they don't just play popular music. They do have a nice shuffle system. So it's that kind of stuff. But people don't know. A lot of people don't know that it exists and how to get into it and stuff. If I can do this, anyone can. I'm as thick as two short planks of wood, really. I've just learned all this stuff through making lots of errors.
I just wanted to open it up for questions, guys, because we're probably going to have to stop fairly soon. So
Well, I can hang around a bit. If you know,
yeah. I'm easy. Yeah.
I'm almost run out of beer. I might have to go and get another one.
Does anyone have any questions for Martin? Don't all shout out at once.
Can I ask then, how long into the career did you wait until you set up your own label? Maybe you have already said that.
I started straight away, actually, Jan.
Yeah.
So it was 1995. I was sat in my bedroom listening to like Mo Wax records, because I used to be a hip hop DJ. That's how I started out. So I bought like really bad belt driven decks and thought I was the nuts, and I wasn't at all. But I had decent ears to buy decent music, so I was buying DJ Shadow, DJ Crush. I was buying like the Mighty Bop, Yellow Productions records, things like that. DJ Cam, all that kind of smoky music, and learning my way. And I saved up some money and bought some Technics decks after about a year or so. Once I got into that state and been able to control the record, I was like, I need to make this music. I can't just play it. I want to make it so I can play my own music. So I had a studio at work, the video games company, but I couldn't use that all the time because it wasn't mine, and it used to have to go in at night, and it was a bit awkward with the alarm systems and stuff like that. So I just I bought a second-hand Atari ST, and I got a cracked copy of Cubase, I think, or something like that, and I bought a Roland S750 sampler, which I didn't have for long because my friend Clive told me to buy an Akai sampler, and then that's when it all changed for me. That's when the workflow started to happen, and you could really get around quite quickly. So as soon as I started to make the music, it came quite quickly because I was already making music, if you know what I mean, for the video game stuff. So before long, I kind of had an album's worth of music, and then a friend of mine, Anthony Wilden, who's a really good guitarist, said you should send some music to DIY in Nottingham. And I was like, nah, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. I don't want to be turned down. And they took it straight away, and I just got a record. So you never know what might happen. And that was the Slide It In record, I think it was. It's a really long time ago, 1996 or 97, that they actually took it. So yeah, that's how it happened. So when they took that record, I thought, well, I don't want other people releasing my music. I want to release it myself as well. I wanted everything. I wanted to be in control of everything because I'm a bit of a control freak. So I set up Mantis, and then it was a kind of a hobby, and then it just moved on from there. Really, it just kind of grew and grew. We put some records out, and the distributors got interested and contacted us, and yeah, so that's how. So I did it straight away. I think it's good to have a platform of your own anyway, even if you don't use it.
Am I sorry, just not to hijack this. Am I right to say you did some music on the Amiga or the Atari before that as well?
Yeah. I was a total geek. So
that's why I know that. I probably not to hijack this, but I've probably checked out your stuff way back in the time.
Yeah, well, I used
91, 92.
I used to record under the name Nuke.
I know.
It was like 4 channels of mono audio on the Commodore.
Yeah. That's where I started as well.
Around Europe and Scandinavia. I went to Norway a couple of times and went to the Netherlands and to Denmark.
It was big back then, yeah.
Yeah,
so that's basically that. But you never released any of that music. But
No.
So when you said you started dabbling, you had dabbled for many years.
Yeah, I dabbled for many years.
Already quite good.
Sampling and stuff. But I think that at that time it was, I started kind of writing music when I was about 13. So, and like in the computer, if you know what I mean. So by the time I was 17, I'd left home and I was traveling around visiting my kind of geeky pen friends around Europe and Scandinavia, and going to like what we used to call copy parties, where you used to have you know copy parties if you know about Nuke.
Yeah. that whole scene with this, everyone else looking at us now going, what's that? But it's actually super, super social. It's way more social than it sounds.
Martin, is that how you know Andreas then?
No, it isn't actually. No, I know Andreas through Alan Brown.
Speaking of people making music when they're 8 and being geeks.
No, I think I've got an affinity with the Scandinavians. I think I might be a Viking anyway. So. No, another thing is as well, there's a lot of people asking me, how did you make it work? How did you make this a living? I didn't. I worked at Core Design for 13 years, and for 10 of those years, I ran Mantis as well. So I'd finish work at 5:30, go across town, drink loads of beers in the pub, and then go to Mantis, my office. I actually had an office at this point and a studio, and work until 2 or 3 in the morning. Then go home, sleep, do the same again. And I did it for such a long time. And that's when I bought the majority of the equipment, is when I was working full time, being paid a decent wage for my job, making no money with my record label, being able to kind of fund it. It was really hard work, but hey, it's all fun.
Yeah, that's a good point though, that having a stable income, and it's not always easy to make enough money doing music to actually buy all the fancy stuff that you would want to have, is it?
If you want it, you've got to put the work in. There's a young chap from South Africa called me, a friend of mine, and he said, Martin, I'm thinking about doing my music full time. And I was like, good for you. He said, yeah, I'm going to give up my job. I said, have you got any savings? He said, no, I think it's time now. I said, have you got any money? No, I've got no money. What? You're not making any money off music. Why are you going to give up your job? You need to do 2 jobs. That's it. That's how you need to do it. Two jobs. Work all day in your job, and then use that money to live while you're building up your career. That's essentially how it happened for me. But I'm really hyperactive, so maybe I've got the energy to do that.
Yeah, I think for me, DJing was the thing. I mean, I made all my money off DJing. I didn't really, most of the records that I released when I started, looking back on them now, I'm like, never got paid, so.
I never got paid for DJing.
I got paid for DJing,
You.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions? Anybody
Yeah,
want to
questions.
ask me anything?
AMA.
I would want to ask something actually.
Come on, mate.
Yeah, so just like people approaching labels, right?
Yeah.
I've been sending tunes out to labels and stuff, but I always feel like it doesn't, like, I don't know the best way to approach them cold, and not really know who the people are, because obviously it's been throughout this year that I've actually kind of came on production.
What genre are you working in?
Like housey, techno-y, I'm kind of drifting in between like that sort of stuff. But
So on that, what labels are you hitting up? Like what would be your ideal, for instance?
I don't know. Dixon Avenue, because they're Scottish, I suppose. But in that kind of realm, the only thing I've done is built up an email list of and a massive one in Google Docs, and I'm just kind of going through it, going, right, this maybe sounds like it would be for that label, and so I'm like hitting those labels that I think that would maybe the sound of that tune would match.
Right. Just all I can do is, because sometimes I in the past I've had to do it, not super recent times, but not so far back and thing. If I get a demo through, the best emails I get and how I kind of, the ones I listen to, is when it's just a simple message, really nice. Hey, love your label, for instance. Something along the lines of, I have a few. You've got to be really like base level with it. Like, I've got a few demos I'd like to let you listen to. For your ease, for instance, I've just dropped the SoundCloud playlist for you below. If you're interested, drop me a message. If not, I'll hit you up next time when I've got another bunch of stuff. And don't be disheartened by that, because another thing, I get a lot of demos from South Africa, and they don't have, it's so expensive, the internet in South Africa. It's so expensive. It's still a third world country. Loads of my mates live there, and it drives me mad when I'm speaking to them. They're like, I've got to go, my data's going. Like, wow.
That's mad.
Really now?
Yeah, I know.
Like Julian Gomez, he's got decent internet at home, but when he's out, he still has to buy airtime and stuff. It's a bit 80s,
Yeah.
So when you get stuff through, sometimes they haven't got the bandwidth to fully set up their SoundCloud account or something like that, and they send you stuff through SendSpace. I'm really busy. I'm not going to download go to a website that I'm unfamiliar with to try and figure out what download button to press in case I get an advert, to then get a RAW file to unzip it, then listen to it whilst my phone's ringing. You know, it's like this thing. So you've got to make it as instant as possible. The best things I get, I don't even like WeTransfer links when it comes to demos. I won't, unless it's from a known source. I think, oh, that guy's released on that label or something. I'll grab that. It's got to be click, listen, you know. So Dropbox, wicked. SoundCloud, wicked. Because essentially you're hitting a website and you're pressing a play button. But don't be disheartened if people don't get in touch with you. Majority of labels, if there's something that you want to jump on, they're probably really busy. So, and just, you know, keep going back, because eventually they'll see your name eventually and go, I'm going to listen this time. You know, it's literally like that. I'm going to listen this time.
Yeah, if you throw enough shit at the wall, some of it's going to stick.
Well, as far as messages, not your music, hopefully.
Oh, no, hopefully not.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I always use the example of Sandrino from Frankie and Sandrino. He emailed Dixon 5 times with the same tune and never heard nothing. And on the 5th time of him saying, look, I think this is going to work, you know, and all that, he was saying, I think this could actually fit on your label. It wasn't being pushy. And they signed it, you know, and then he did 3 releases on Innovisions and was playing at Lost in a Moment, and you know what I mean. And I would never email somebody more than once. I was like, oh, they hate me, you know, like they've not replied, you know, like.
Can you talk for a minute while I just nip to the toilet?
Yeah, sure. But yeah, Jordan, what I would say is you've already had some stuff, like you had stuff played on the radio, didn't you?
Yeah. I've been getting, like, it's weird because I tried to kind of capitalize on the radio plays by hitting up the labels kind of whilst striking while the iron was hot, because I want to release on some labels because I want to, I don't know, I feel like it broadens my sound a little bit.
I think what you're discovering, which is something I've had a lot throughout my career, is that it's mad that it's easier to get something played on Radio 1 than it is to get, you know, Shall Not Fade to listen to your demo.
Mad.
And I think, and I had the same where, you know, I could get Record of the Month in Mixmag or, you know, curate my own boiler room, but then, you know, you send it to some label and you've met the guy in the club and he's like, you know, yeah, man, yeah, and then tumbleweed. I think there's 2 things. You've got to do some stuff yourself, Jordan, because if they're not going to let you in, you have to create your own opportunity. So you have to probably self-release something because you can control the narrative. And if they're already playing your stuff on Radio 1, they don't care what label it's on. If they're playing Jordan's music, if you self-release it, they're going to play it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and then the other side is to, like, labels often, they work with people they're really close to, you know? This is the problem with sometimes in the music industry. It's great that people have a family and it's all crew-based and stuff, but also people are really lazy. So if you sign with a manager, they will literally suggest that you do a remix for, you know, on their friend's label, or hey, you'd be really good on this label, and I'm like, it's just your mate's label.
It's I know, it's like the.
You know, I don't make trance, you know. So I think that you know, with a lot of labels, Jordan, they don't want to even have the effort of reading an email from some guy they don't know, and then will it be a SoundCloud set or will it be 4 SoundCloud? When I see 4 SoundCloud links, I'm a bit like, you know, it's we're all lazy and we're all looking for an excuse to not have to do any work, you know. Not all of us.
Link, as long as they're SoundCloud links, I can as many as you like, but you can't, like, back to the thing, it has to be accessible straight. It has to be click straight in.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Does that help, Jordan?
Yeah, no, totally. It's good to hear the other side of the coin, because I've been thinking about self-releasing and I've got a platform for it, but I'm just kind of like, I felt like, I don't know, it's just when you were saying, like, what's the drive behind putting the music out, and I kind of wanted it on a label. That was I felt like if a label took it, then that was like somebody saying that it's good enough. You know what I mean?
But often, Jordan, I was just going to say that often, you know, you look at a lot of these labels that release a lot of music every month, no one cares about any of those releases, you know what I mean?
I know, it's just a personal thing, you know what I mean?
Labels that the guys who run it are on, you know, Paramount, and they're playing all the time, and people who make the music get nothing. I mean, do you want to be part of that, you know?
I don't know, like, it's just that thing when you go, I've made a tune, I want it on a label, I want somebody that's class, and I want them to, like, take it off me. But then you're right. You're not yourself.
Stuff's being played on Radio 1. But like honestly, I guarantee you, if you sign something to a label, it's probably less likely to be on Radio 1 than if you because you care more than anybody about your stuff. You know what I mean? So for me, signing, I'm not dissing other labels, and I mean obviously Martin, might have a different perspective, but I'm regularly disappointed by what. And that's the thing with you, Martin. You're probably a bit more holistic, or maybe laissez-faire about it all. But I'm like, man, if I do my own tunes, I'm getting it on Radio 1. Like I'm getting that shit. Whereas if you do it with another label, a lot of the time, you kind of feel like you're annoying them by sort of saying, "Hey, what was the feedback like on the Fat Drop there?" And they're like,
I mean, can I just say, and it's really interesting, Jordan, because I was in maybe your situation 6 months ago, and that's kind of when I bumped into Danny and got pretty much this advice 6 months ago. And I have to concur, it's been really good to have your own little label and thinking differently about it, instead of thinking, oh, who's going to care? Who's going to, why would anyone listen to this? Actually, because I'm pushing it so much harder than any label would, because I care more about me than, they do. And I've been lucky to be on Stress and Traum in the last couple of months, and I've had more traction with my self-releases, absolutely, than I have with both of those releases, which is really weird. It's really strange now to me that that's actually the case. But I am getting more traction on radio, and not Radio 1 yet, but Radio 6 and local BBC Radio Bristol, just by me shouting so much more about it and sending it to all the places, right? So you should do the same, and maybe you should hit up the labels as well, and do those in.
Let yourself out.
That'd be good. Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you.
But Jordan, it's like, keep going, because if you're getting your stuff played on Radio 1, that's amazing, and that's the dream. And I think that's a good platform for you to maybe start a label, because you've already got those kind of warm connections with the producers and stuff, So that's my piece. Martin?
Nice. Cheers.
Martin, have you got anything to add?
I think you're right. I think you're all right. I think, I run labels. I've been called conflicted before. Conflicted. Why is that then? Because your remix did better than our whole release. I don't know how to answer that question to somebody. I didn't particularly push up my remix of this particular release. I pushed the whole release. But in the world that I work in, the music that I produced was more of the style that people were used to. Let's put it like that. I do believe that no matter what we do as artists, as us, as on the level, we will always be the people that shout about our music the best and the most, and we're the only people that can really properly represent it from its core, because essentially it's art. It's our work, it's our art, and it's connected to us quite deeply. There are a lot of labels out there that do take a lot of care and attention and love what they have as catalogue. I've worked with a fair few. I've got a release coming out with Fred Everything under my Martin Iveson and his All Is Well name on Prince Thomas's label, and they've been so incredibly lovely to us, and
Ivilo,
international, and it's just
good people.
So it's a really lovely thing to find that, and also with due respect to Dix and to Frank and Christian, when I was releasing on Innovisions, again, they put a lot of effort and passion into something, because they're doing it for the right reasons. They don't do this for the glory. They do it because they have a point to make, and if your music connects with them and that point is made stronger, then they'll take it on.
That's a really good point though, Martin. Like, just chuck this out there, as I think the people that you want to get your stuff signed with, what is their point? Like, what are they, are they actually doing it for a reason, or are they just some, party guy? What I mean? When I went to see Innovisions, they had Tobias rap Lost and Sound on they translated it into English, and they had a pile of them in their Mitte Berlin office, and they'd drawn a line on it with marker pen, and that was their break even, and they'd drawn the line on the books. And they didn't care, because they knew that if someone got a book from Innovisions and it had a bit of marker pen on it, they'd be like, oh, maybe Dixon drew that line, you know. And they were, you know, they weren't normal, and they said to me, hey, Danny, whatever anyone else is doing, you know, like, we do the opposite. You know, they're like, we don't do the same as other people. You know,
they were very lucky because they were in a position to do so. My release on Innovisions was the very last one when Sonar Collective were their parent label. They split from Sonar Collective after my release and went their own way and set up their own. They actually distribute themselves, which is really cool. You know, no one's taken a bite out of their apple. That's like mega, mega, mega cool. Yeah, they're a bit untouchable, but they also have a plan, you know, and they're sticking to it. That's the other thing. That's why they're quite difficult to get in touch with. You know, Dixon's a really, really old friend of mine. I can't get in touch with him. You know, we used to go shopping, for goodness sake. So, you know, it's one of those things. You know, speak to each other every New Year's Eve. It's far and few between that we have any communication these days. But I understand that that's what happens sometimes. And those guys, your best inroad with Innovisions, anybody out there, if you've worked with them or if you want to work with them, is Frank Weidman. Because even though Frank isn't kind of super part of the label anymore, he's still super close with the guys. So, yeah.
Yeah. Just as an example of just the way things go and stuff like that, you know. But yeah,
it manifests and grows and changes all the time. You just have to be. We ourselves have to be dynamic and change with it and understand where our shit lands. You know, like, you know, Jordan, what you were saying about emailing people. What I'm trying to tell you is understand where it lands. I'm telling you where it lands for the people sending me demos. And I know how to react to I know instantly if I'm going to react to that email or not because of my time schedule. You know, like, can I actually do? I don't want to turn people down. I don't want to ignore people. But at the same time, I work from like 9:30 in the morning till 2:33, 2:45 in the afternoon because I've got to get my kids every day. So I've got really short days. So you know, those emails are super important. So how you craft them and keep them the same, you know, so that people get the same format every time. People love format.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know, but I'm skirting around the outskirts.
No. But
that's helpful. That's really helpful. Just honestly, you get this feeling when you're like, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be pestering people. So hearing that, like, yeah, no, like most people's emails are open and they're if they've got the time, they're going to check it. It's a good thing to hear.
Yeah.
You know if you're going to be annoying or not, surely. You can push buttons.
I've been told I'm annoying by a few people. So.
Yeah, me too. I'm just saying, you know, there's a difference between saying,
Jordan,
hey, sorry, go for it.
No, I was just going to pitch in just because Jordan's talking about Dixon Avenue Basement Jams, which is sort of I think they're Glasgow based, aren't they? And they've got connections with all the Rubber Dub crowd and all that. Like I don't think they don't seem like an unreachable, untouchable label. They're super busy because they're really hot at the moment. But I reckon like another way in would be to, you know, the people who they're associated with and who release on them and who play at their parties, the DJs, send demos to the DJs so that you're not looking for a release so much, but you're saying, hey, I did this tune, just, you know, wanted to send it your way in case you're ever looking for new
Jordan,
tracks to put in a set or whatever. Like there's a guy.
So am I.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, you can. I've
booked them loads of time because obviously having putting on the parties and stuff like that for like the past 10 years. Like I've booked them loads of times and stuff, but I just feel I've never managed to change from being the promoter to being like, oh, here's the music that I'm making as well. So it's kind of like it's that swap, it's that gradual change from people that. Because I know a good few people haven't booked them, and I do send the tracks out to some people, but I do. I don't know. It's a personal thing. It must be just like.
But this is
It's a confidence thing as well, isn't it?
Heart. You've got to change hearts, and,
Yeah, you don't want to come across as being pushy, but at the same time, you really want something. You're a nice guy. You've booked them. You've done them favors. You know, your cards can be put on the table as well. You know, as long as you're nice, man. It's the way that you put yourself forward. If you say nice things to people, it's not going to be accepted in an annoying way, if you know what I mean.
But-
I'm sure that if you sent me an email that I'd go, if it had a SoundCloud link, that I'd check it out. It might not be for me, but I tell you, there's a few people. I've got some folders in my catalog and production folder on my computer that by John something, I can't remember his full name. Another few things, and they've sent me stuff after me listening to their SoundCloud links and thinking, shit, this is really good. When am I going to be able to put this out? Because my catalog, my schedule's so full. But I kind of prefer it to that release. You know, labels juggle all the time because they're fixed to time, and if they get busy, the release slots, and then they don't want to rush stuff out because then the artist isn't getting what they need from it. You know. But everyone's really super like, I want my music out at the minute. When? Yesterday! At the beginning of COVID, so I've got money to live. Right, okay.
the other thing is relationships, like, you know, in terms of, it's not always that easy to just get, you know, a release with a label. I see so many people saying about the process, people who run labels and people who've got, you know, you send them some stuff and they're like, yeah, cool, you know, that's all right. And it's like labels want to see you progress as a producer maybe before they even sign anything, because they want to have confidence that you're, you know, the real deal, that you're, you know, you're on a journey. You're not just some kind of, I mean, obviously, if someone comes out of nowhere and the music's amazing, it's great, but it almost feels a bit like, you know, like No First Date or something. Do you know what I mean? You're like, what? You know, like, you know.
It's hard to break artists as well these days. It's really hard to you know, one thing you worry about investing too much money and not getting it back, because labels, if I invest 500 quid into a release, I won't see that money on most releases for at least a year. And then I've got another release the week after and another release 2 weeks after that. And all of a sudden I'm broke. My kids are eating Rivita crackers. And, you know, the PR companies are going, hey, but the artist still is up and coming. I think, you know, like I said initially, some music breaks through, you know, the lucky spots and the lucky timings and all this kind of stuff. And Giles picks up a tune or something and plays it, or Benji B will play something. All of a sudden people are going, oh, have you heard that tune? Oh, Moody Man played it. You know, these magical moments do happen, but they're far and few between.
Yeah.
The rest of it's just get your chisel out and just keep going, man.
Hammer and Tom.
Don't hit it too hard.
And the other thing is that, you know, this whole kind of like 0 to 10 culture as well. I mean, there isn't a process anymore, is there? And it's like, I think that's what's missing a lot is that you get artists going, how can I break through? And it's like, well, where is that? Where is the process? You know what I mean? Like, you're getting your stuff played on Radio 1, but you don't even have a record deal or anything. You know what I mean? That's wasn't like that in the 90s. Do you know what I mean? And so there was a bit more of a process. And I mean, that can be great. I mean, you don't have to, you know, have had 50 records out before you get played by Annie or whatever, but you've been played by Annie. What now? Where, you know, where is there? You know, why are no late? I mean, it just feels like there's some sort of weird vacuum. You know what I mean? Because really, really amazing music, like me and Martin know this, and, you know, you all know this, absolutely amazing music disappears without a trace. And absolute trash gets, you know, like, ooh, you know, and it's completely based on who the artist is and their profile and their connections. Thing is, Jordan, you could probably rinse out your dance music connections and be, you know, you could make it happen, but maybe you don't want to go down.
I'm wary of it. I don't want to get blocked from anybody, so I'm wary of it.
And what you're talking about, I've met so many people, right, DJing, where they're like the promoter or the resident, and they're like, yeah, I actually produce, and like, but they're like, but I don't know how to not be the warm-up guy or not be the promoter, and I get that, and yeah, I think that's the problem. Is it's not easy to, you're either like production or you're an artist, or, you know what I mean? There doesn't seem to be really very sweet spots anymore, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Let's have a chat with Liam. He said he had one of those lucky moments. I want to know what that was.
Okay, Liam's saying I had one of those lucky moments. Okay, Liam. Hello, Liam.
Where is he? No sound.
He's got his camera, his mic on, but
We can see your lovely face, mate. We just can't hear your voice.
Hi, Liam. Oh yeah. I'm afraid there's no sound, Liam.
Could you just tell us? Could you just tell us in the text message what it
Can
was?
you type, Liam? A tune that hits the sweet spot. Haha. Okay. Did something happen?
So you said you had one of those lucky moments. Did someone pick it up?
Wow. That's all right.
Nice one. So when was that? I know a few friends that have had some stuff with Defected. I've done a bit of work with Defected.
2 years ago.
That was quite recent then. That's wicked.
I think your mic isn't actually on, Liam. I think maybe you have to go to the audio settings on Zoom and choose your microphone or whatever, but don't worry about it if it's...
But it's good to hear, though. It's good to hear, mate. It's really good to hear.
And how did that happen, Liam? Did you send a demo, or did you have a friend who worked at Defected, or...
They get more than 100. Friend.
Friend at Defected. There you go.
Well,
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, you can't all engineer having an amazing friend at an amazing label, but you can definitely, you know, it's about relationships, isn't it? It's about also doing things. You were saying this before, Martin, to me, or it's just like, you know, you have to do things to get noticed. You have to basically be like, have content, you know, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm a good producer. Like, well, I don't have a SoundCloud, or, you know, like, yeah, I don't have an artist name, you know, like, you gotta kind of have some things going on.
Liam, sorry, mate, to bother you again. What was the release? Just so I can just scribble it down, because I'm interested. What was the artist name? It all goes quiet.
It's quite interesting having the typing rather than the sticks and stones.
Right, sticks. And
if anyone else has got any perspectives on this, I mean, feel free to jump in. I mean, this is all really useful stuff for you guys, I think, because this is the kind of questions, is like, how do I get my stuff on a label? How do I build up a relationship with people, etc., etc.? If you're just on the internet, it is possible, but I kind of feel like that's a bit stale in a way. You know, it's like, if you can actually meeting people in person is really, really important. You know, if you can, really can. It can also ruin things, you know.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, Martin. Can you hear me?
Hey, hi, George.
Talking from Athens, Greece.
Hello.
It's been an awesome discussion, Martin. You were an open book, man. I greatly appreciate one of your few sessions that we had a really meaningful discussion, meaningful messages. So just to add a little thing in this discussion, from my personal experience, I think that what could help more than, let's say, hitting certain people yourself would be to have other people recommend you. I mean, for my experience, I had my, let's say, album. I've been working on many things, been for many years producing things, but I had an album this August, and I'm working on a second one at this point, doing what I want, which is play the guitar, produce, you know, electronic music, but merging these sounds. I've been doing it for many years now. But what really helped were these people, these Facebook friends, this, let's say, since high school, these new acquaintances, these, you know, friends that you have similar tastes in music, or you like a new release and say, hey, you're enthusiastic, and then you send them a song and say, hey, I want to send it, George, to someone. Is it okay with you? This has helped me. This actually open doors wide open.
Of course. I mean, you know, I think we all we've all asked our friends to, if they could possibly share this, share that, push this on your Facebook page.
Sample it.
Sorry, mate, your thing's really. So I think yeah, of course, asking people to help is really good. I don't think I'm kind of an organic kind of reach person, right? So I don't believe in maybe getting, let's just say, a PR company to shout about something that is so new. No, that's not right, actually. No, I'm just talking about maybe, asking friends to share things to help to gather, reach, to ask their friends to share things to get reach is fine. I think somehow paying, and I'm not saying you're talking about this, is quite difficult because your stream went a bit crazy. Is that maybe paying to try and advertise something is already going down the manufacturing a career route kind of thing. I believe that only when, well, it all depends. I think it's a difficult question to answer, really, because if you're an album artist, then yeah, you should be paying for people to promote your albums. Of course you should. I think when it comes down to the level where you're trying to get noticed, paying for that is, I find that a little bit weird. As an artist to an artist, that's all I'm saying.
I don't agree to pay for these things because public relations do not have any emotion, any enthusiasm. I'm just saying, just a friend, he's doing mixes, or he's just passing the torch.
That's amazing, though.
Passing the torch, and I think this is something that is these days with new people, even with this ecosystem that Dan is building. I think that is why people are catching up with that.
I think you're right there. Because essentially, that goes back to what Danny was talking about earlier when it comes to having a community. It's something that is so important when it comes to being an artist, to have a community of people to keep your head right, to help spread the word, for sure, absolutely, 100%. I didn't hear your stream cut out before, so I couldn't hear exactly what you were saying, so I was kind of guessing a couple of things you were asking. But yeah, for sure, I mean, that's just lovely and beautiful anyway. Why shouldn't you reach out and ask all those people that you know to support your music? I mean, that's just something that we do naturally, I think, as music producers and artists. I think it's what should be done in general, is sharing your music out there, because initially there's very little money to be made unless you're making mainstream music anyway.
I just wanted to say, though, on that note, my camera's gone. Is my camera gone?
Sorry, still a beautiful picture of you.
Oh my God! Why? That's a bit strange.
Is someone watching something? And if so, is it the Starship launch?
My camera's gone. Okay, give me a sec.
Starship launch tonight, Jan.
Some background noise, isn't there?
Okay. I don't think I can.
Anyway, I just finished with George. I think it's a really good idea, George. Anyway, absolutely. I think that's a kind of thing, and that's a community thing. I think that's making sure that everyone's kind of connected and doing their bit. Here's my music. Can you please support it? Yes. Do your bit. Okay.
2 tracks just for the sake of collaborating. I don't know. For me, it has helped me in the past. Also.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I collaborate a lot with people. It really does, because you share your fan base, you share your support networks.
Exactly.
Everyone jumps on it, and that's actually, to be honest, something that. Sorry to talk over you there, Danny. That's something that's been really important in my career. Full on is the constant collaborations I've been in, whether it's featuring a singer or working on a song with someone and sharing it. or featuring on someone else's work, or doing a remix for someone for free, for them to do some work back for you for free. You know, in the world I work in, I know a lot of, you know, good producers. We don't exchange money. We remix for each other. So I'll ask Ocean Lade, he'll do a remix for me. Some way down the line, he'll go, here's some parts, I need a mix for this. We'll do it for each other. But it's sharing and expanding your fan base, essentially, in a kind of really beautiful organic way. None of this is going to be perfect, but you know, especially with friends, to try and keep that community vibe going is to do as many favors as we can for each other, to help one another to kind of continue, and that natural expansion thing, you know.
Obviously.
So yeah, I'm with you, George, all the way with that.
So yeah, that's just it. You've got to just try and behave in the right way. Don't just look at people as an opportunity. Don't be like, oh yeah, well, you know, can you forward on this stuff for me? Because do you know what I mean? I'm not going to help you if you're not interested in being a friend to me. You know what I mean? As well, you know.
That, you know, Danny, that kind of brings me back to what Jordan was saying earlier, and this has got nothing to do with what you actually said, Jordan, but it's about how where your words land. Let's just say, if Jordan is to email me, I'm sure I get a lovely email and email me back, and we'll end up having a beer one day. That's fine. Wicked. Another mate. Yes. So, point being, I get a lot of emails that say, yo, you haven't listened to my demo. I understand you're busy, but you could at least give me 5 minutes of your time. For I might have been in a car crash that day. You have to really, on the internet, know how to behave yourself. You know, if someone spoke to me that down the street, they'd probably get pushed under a car. It's really rude to be like that. So what you're saying, Danny, is you're being so incredibly careful about someone else's world, but at the same time gently entering a new person into the situation with the hope that that person might be able to someday have a relationship with that person. It's like saying, hey, kiss. No, we don't want to. You can't do that. It's really, you've got to take things baby steps all the way, and you've got to be bloody nice about it. You can't just muscle in there going, yo, check my, because I get a lot of this, check my demo, you're gonna love it.
And I just want to say that, like, I've obviously, when I was younger, I probably did those, you know, stupid mistakes, but this is the mentality that I've developed from people like Martin, you know, checking me back in the day, you know, giving me a slap, you know, like down the record store, you know, Charles Webster or someone, you know, kind of grunting at me for a few years because I was an upstart, you know, and now he, you know, he says, oh, I really like that track you made, or, you know what I mean? He actually, you know, respects me. People do have an opinion about the way you operate. They might not say it, you know, but they're going to think it. So these are really important things for you guys with the networking and with the, you know, the way that you connect with people, the way that you go in, you know, not like, hey, you don't know me, like Martin says, you know, yo, you know, like, dude, you don't know, you know, I've had it so many times, Martin's had it so many times, that people just expect you to just bow to their whims, and the world doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I just have to say that I've learned by my mistakes, and I sent some emails in the past that have landed sorely, and I've learned quite heftily from them. I meant nothing in a one way or the other. I was maybe just a bit careless and just throwing an email out there, not really realizing where it was going. You know, blah blah blah. These days, my emails with my friends are horrible. It's brilliant. We send each other disgraceful, horrible emails. But when I'm speaking to people, you know, in my world of business, unless I need to push buttons because they can obviously tell I'm a little bit cross because I haven't had a royalty statement, which I'm dealing with at the minute for 2 years, that and it's a really respected artist as well. So you do get this. I'm still pleasant in my emails, but I'm pushy pleasant, and it's that kind of, you know, I understand that you might be blah blah blah, but you know, this is a requirement I need, and this was agreed initially. So it's, you know, you just, I think, you know, this is something I said to Danny when he first asked me to do this, is I wanted to touch on internet candor and how one puts themselves out there. I don't think I need to talk about it fully, because I don't need to be telling people how to suck eggs. Essentially, this is something that is really important because of what Jordan brought up. It's when you are sending out music to people, doesn't matter how many times you get it's not rejected, it's like ignored, I guess. It's not ignorant, it's I can't deal with it. That's what it probably is. I can't deal with this now. Try again, because there will be a point where there's a gap in that wall and you'll slide straight through it. And it's that pleasant attitude and that constant quiet confidence that one has that will carry people through, you know.
Yeah, if you try and grab onto something really tight, it will slip out of your hand. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
or you'll strangle it.
Yeah, like, just be like cool, be calm. You know, if you don't have what it takes, then you have to get what it takes. You can't pretend you've got what it takes. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, no one's saying you have to be like, you know, a Tchaikovsky pianist, you know, but, you know, and you can teach yourself most things, you know. But yeah, trying to get a record deal when you don't have the music, or when you don't have any artist profile, or, you know, it's not always going to work.
It's
very, I mean,
very complicated.
I can say it can have a lot to do with the timing for the label as well. I mean, you could be the right person next year, but not now. So maybe they start noticing you, and maybe they don't even respond, but you keep sending stuff, and then maybe 9 months down the line they go, "We've been noticing what you've been sending, and maybe actually now there's space for you in our release schedule."
I have one of those at the minute, Jan. There's this guy. He's such a badass producer. It's amazing. It's like technically, freakily brilliant. You know, like clean, clinical, techie, beautiful, deep, luscious house music. I want to put it out yesterday, but I can't do it yet because my schedule's too busy. And then he sent me more stuff, and I'm like, I want it all. And when it gets to that point, and this has happened in the past, I've said to people, look, you've sent me 7 songs now. Why don't you add another 3 or 4? And let's do an album. Because another thing I've said to artists at this point is, like, take the time to do an album. It will cement you as an artist. You know, maybe George can understand that because he's released an album recently and working on another one. It really, that body of work really shows one off, you know. It really shows what you're made of, you know.
Actually, a similar thing happened when I started sending stuff to the BBC, introducing Uploader, which is just this form on
I know it very well, yeah.
And you don't get any feedback, and you just get this automated email, and I just kept sending things, and then eventually, after maybe 4 months, they picked up a track, and then they picked up another track, and then they said in the second show, they said, "We've been loving everything he's been sending."
Yeah, they did.
Oh, you've been listening. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
One of the Sai Chu was doing the same. Sai Chu early on was, even though he was releasing music with me, he was still, the stuff that I wasn't interested, or the stuff he thought I wouldn't be interested in, he was still uploading it. You know, he was still putting it through the introducing thing, and he got loads of plays.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend that to everyone because it
for sure. You know,
it really works. It really works, and the way they've rate limited it to only 2 tracks per month, I think, is really clever. You have to be really smart.
Totally worked for me. Like I was just told to put stuff up and I've had like 2 or 3 songs on the radio now. So it's like,
that's amazing. That really cool.
Yeah.
And it's good. You get a good you get a good feeling once it happens. It kind of, obviously this year it's driven me forward more this year having that happen because there's no gigs. So I'm kind of like that has driven me forward and went, oh, do you know what, I'm going to make some more music because I hit a mental lull. Start like summer, and you kind of went, I'm not getting any gigs. I can't play the music out. What's the point? Do you know what I mean? But that gave me a kind of kick up the arse and kept me going. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think you should be inspired by that, Jordan. I mean, I think everyone should be inspired by that. You know, it's like you don't know what's possible, what's around the corner. I emailed Rachel, this woman called Rachel, who runs We Are Grape, which is like the production company who do all the most of the Radio 1 DJs. Like, you know, they were doing Monkey, they were doing Annie, they were doing, you know, and I just sent her a little email just saying, hey, you know, Red Rackham, you might remember my tune, you know, just wondering. And she copied me into an email with all the producers of all those different shows and basically introduced me to them. And that meant that I could directly plug them. And that was because I was nervous to email her. You know, I was like, oh, she's going to just think, who's this artist Dick guy? And then, you know, I ended up getting loads of stuff played on Radio 1 because of that, you know. So it's amazing what you can achieve if you just kind of take the little plunge, but you do it in the right way, you know, in a nice way.
I mean, how did you even have her email then?
I think I looked up on the internet, and Jan's just trying to work out how he can get the email.
I'm not getting LinkedIn up like
Jan, I'm not going to tell you, Jan.
No, I'm gonna.
I'm not going to tell you. You've got to learn. You know, like...
That's not what I'm saying. I'm gonna go on LinkedIn right now.
See, he's already thinking LinkedIn.
Already found it.
I didn't mention her surname, did I? You know.
I think we could find out.
Vincent's just sat there going, I know, I've got her.
Hey, so anyone got any more questions for Martin? Anything burning that you want to ask about production or about the business side of things? Or James, have you got anything? Very quiet tonight, James.
Sorry, yeah, I was just observing and listening in.
Oh,
good.
Oh, look, he's got a Christmas tree. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, it's been up a bit early this year, Martin. Yeah. Just a quick one, because you're changing topic slightly.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Earlier on, you obviously mentioned the importance of Charles Webster as your mentor. So I'm just wondering, back then, and perhaps even to this day, how did he influence your creativity or your side of it?
Charles isn't so much, let's say, a sonic influence on me, because we kind of work together as a kind of... We come together as two different things. But as a person, he was like a big brother, really. I was really lucky. You obviously know DIY and stuff, and Charles did a lot of the work for the early DIY records, you might know anyway. A lot of the mixing and stuff like that. And I never really knew Charles. I was with Rick and Pete, rest in peace, obviously, a lot of the time, and in their dingy studios above Square Centre. And then someone said, oh, you know, come and meet Charles. So we ended up going to Charles's studio, and we just went on a geek fest for about an hour talking about equipment, and ended up having a curry around the corner. And he was like, when are you coming over next, kind of thing, you know, that kind of vibe. And I went over, and we just got really good friends, and we were into the same thing. And he was playing me Joni Mitchell and all these kind of different musics he was into, and I didn't have anything to play him, but I had my music to bring to the table. And I was quite happy with Charles leading, if you know what I mean, because, you know, he's quite a bossy man, and I'm quite a bossy man. But when it comes to Charles, he's allowed to be the bossy man in our situation. So it kind of snowballed, really. We worked together on quite a lot of things, and ended up for about 2 or 3 years having a band called Version with Emily Chick. We toured a bit. We went all over the place. We played in Ireland and in Russia and in Netherlands, in France, and in Czech Republic, and all. We just kind of travelled around doing these crazy gigs with our crazy singer friend, and then that led on to something else. And then he started other projects, and we had a bit of like time apart. But even with his new album, he came here to do the final mixdowns, and I'd ended up doing the mastering. So he's like part of my family, really. You know, he's extended family. Although he's living 7,000 miles away in Cape Town, he's still here. You know, it's one of those things. It's a relationship that started by accident, but really turned into something. And all through that, Charles has been supportive of me in a way, in a kind of not bullying way, but like in bullish fashion, where he would tell me not to do that or tell me to do that. And and I was very self-conscious of my music, of myself and my music at one point. And Charles said, "Don't worry about it. You only have to please yourself, because you're not writing the kind of music that you need to be self-conscious about, kind of thing. You can only do what you can do. Do it, because if you can please yourself, you're only going to get better at what you do, kind of thing." And it's that kind of level of mentoring in the music industry, because he's done a lot over a lot of years, and when you're around people like that, you tend not to question it. You take it as the word. So he's been a super influence, and he's still one of my best mates. So
Great, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's ridiculous if you look at Charles's history, and like the people, like he was engineering for a lot of the Detroit guys at Square Dance, which was in Nottingham. It was the studio, so he'd done mix engineering for people like Juan Atkins and people like that. It's mad.
Square Dance was a great Square. It was a Square. It was a Square. It wasn't a Square. It was a great place. It was actually a really nice studio. Really,
and there was Time Records and Emit Records. There was all these labels. Yeah, because I used to go to college. I did a college course in 1999 at Square Centre, and DIY had their studio, and I used to see them on like a Monday or a Tuesday. And I wouldn't say I was like, I want to be like them when I grow up, but I was inspired by it, and yeah, it was amazing to be around that kind of. Yeah, it was,
I'm surprised you saw them on a Monday or a Tuesday.
Well, it was probably a Wednesday, but no, but I mean, like they opened the door to me, and yeah,
Honestly, they were great. They were great.
Yeah.
They were the first people to sign my music, and I hold their flag very aloft.
The values that they had, this whole everyone's equal, and kind of even if I took in my first ever house track and played it to them, and they were actually quite complimentary about it, and it listen to it now, and it's it's pretty turkey, obviously, but it was inspiring. But yeah, Charles was scared. I mean, I was scared of Charles. You know what I mean? He was like this big guy, and he'd kind of growl at you in the record store, and funny, eh?
Well, he's a monster, man. He's back in the day. Him and Herbert used to work together, Matthew Herbert, and they had he's been around, man. He's done his stuff, and he's done it. He's been there since day one. He's very well respected all over the world. Very
close with Pepe Braddock as well.
Yeah, good mates with Pepe and Burial, obviously, and people like that. So he's if you listen to Charles Webster sound, and then you listen to Pepe Braddock, you listen to Burial, you listen to people from Detroit, you can see how he's influenced them as well. And it may be the ambient element of his music, I don't know, but he's got such a lot of space and what have you in the way he works. When he was sat in here mixing, I'd be coming in and out, passing him glasses of wine, and saying dinner's ready, hurry up, whatever it is. I'd be like, what are you doing? How'd you do it? What is that? He just plays around, and he's got this delicate touch, and it is a delicate touch, and it's something that is for producers, it's something to behold, really.
That album, I mean, it's like some fantasy film or something. It's
like I say, it's a one of those things. It's a bit everything he's done, even though his Old Presents album, the Charles Webster album, the Peace Frog, the Love from San Francisco stuff. It all has a slightly different edge, but you can tell it's him. It's got this kind of space. It's always bloody big, wide.
Yeah. Anyone else got any questions? Anything they want to ask?
I was gonna ask a question if possible. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for doing this, Martin. Really appreciate it. I was gonna ask, just from someone who's really into house, but into every genre, Afrobeat, jazz, kind of your approach or advice you'd have for working with musicians, session musicians, and not only building that relationship and making them feel great and feel the vibe in the room, but also just communicating the MIDI that you've kind of created, letting them kind of have that space. Just in general, if you have any advice for
one thing I've learned over the years is to especially when it comes to people like percussionists or like a guitar player. I've got to pick the specific instruments, like a percussionist or a guitar player or a saxophonist or a horn player. First and foremost, I think you have to be blown over by their work before you work with them, because then what I've learned over the years is that you can just pass your stuff to them and trust them with it. Let them do what they want. Them doing what they want is their best work. You know, if you, I'm not going to ever sit back and say, right, Mr. Percussionist, I know you've traveled Cuba and you've been to Argentina and you've spent 6 years in Brazil and you've spent a bit of time in Nepal with some bells and you've done this in West Africa, but I'm going to tell you what I want. I want it to sound like this Louis Vega record. It's not about that. You've got to allow that percussionist, if you really love their work and the instruments that they work with, to do their business, you know, because you can always take away or add. It's fine, but you need to let them be free. Yeah, that's a big mistake I've made in the past, is kind of going, well, I like that guy and he's, or that girl, and they're not like the best, but I'm sure we can do something. And then you end up just hacking away at something for months and then going, it's not, never worked because it's not what I wanted, you know, it wasn't my plan. So I think you need to really, and people need to get paid. You know, these days, I just say, what is your fee? And if I feel that that person is worth their fee, I just pay them their fee. Because, again, when someone gets paid what they feel that they deserve, they're going to do their best work. Everyone's an artist, so a percussionist in their own right is going to add so much to your record. A saxophonist in their own right is going to add so much to your record if you let them. Start trying to control people and start trying to tell people to march around in a specific way, that doesn't work. And I've been there, I've done that, and it's failed massively. So yeah, I guess, you know, just being able to find the right people that you really feel that you can, that's the kind of person for me. You know, there are many. One thing I realized is I'm here like programming percussion and just try my hardest to kind of get everything right, and then I go, why don't I just get a percussionist to do this, you know? Let them do the job. Find the right guy, find the right girl, let them do the work and pay them right for it, because, you know, it really does. Recently on my album, I've had some of the most amazing parts back that before I would have ruffled through samples and old records and stuff to try and find the right things. This time I've just got all this glorious new material. It's amazing, and you can reuse it on different tracks and chop and change. So I think, you know, with all the different styles that you mentioned, just find the right people. It really is about finding the right people.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
No, you're welcome.
Martin, one question, Alex. So you mentioned that was not my plan. So creativity and planning in general, where you see optimum in kind of making your tracks in general? Do you plan in advance, or you mentioned also happy accident moments, but in general, what's your plan when you are creating?
Well, I don't plan in advance ever. Because my time in my studio is really precious, I don't really get time to, like earlier we played around with the song, I'll bounce those stems out for everybody to just add to their sample library if they want to dip into them at some point. It's, for me, playing around is the time when I'm making a song. It might work, it might not, but that doesn't get put to the side and then I'll come back to it later. It just gets deleted, because I have to really feel something personally especially these days, to keep me going, you know, to keep that flow motion, that forward motion going with my creativity. I have to really feel what I've done, and it's really hard to find it sometimes. So if it's not working, goodbye. So this is why I talk about happy accidents and using scrubbing functions and sampling things. You know, I've mentioned to a few people. I don't know whether you remember an old TV show from the 60s and 70s called Lassie, an American TV show where it was a dog that used to go around rescuing animals and stuff like that. I used to love the soundtrack to that when I was a kid, and I've sampled the shit out of that on my album and scrubbed it and found parts and elements and stuff, and then overlaid it with synthesizers and actually had real strings played over the top of it and new horns played over the top of it in order to find the next step, So it's that, I sample a lot I sample a lot that never gets used as well. So I'll sample something and I'll put it into my song and it'll just give me ideas, and then I'll just delete it because it gave me a direction. That direction may get deleted as well. I don't know. It's one thing that we have to take away from the creativity thing in a positive way. The thing we take away positively from it is if you fail in the studio, you were meant to, because you had something in you creatively that you had to get out, but it wasn't the thing that you needed to do. It was the thing that was in the way and blocking the thing that you needed to do. So when I come in the studio and I'll go back in the house and Amanda says to me, how was it? And I'll go, it was crap. She goes, oh no. And then she says to me, but and I go, I know, it has to be like that sometimes, because you have to get rid of that unwanted creative energy to let the next stuff flow through. So never get pissed if you think you've wasted your time in the studio. Happy accidents are one of the best things in the world for creating new ideas and stuff, but they still don't work sometimes. They just don't work. But it's coming the next day and you listen back to what you did that you really liked the night before, and it might sound crap to you the next day. You just got to get through it. It's like get your scythe out and just keep hacking through that grass until you get to the clearing, and eventually you will. So that's why I talk about happy accidents, because they really help me with my creative process. But my creative process does get stunted by my bad ideas, by my bad creative energy. But once that's out, usually the good energy comes back and I flow with something that I personally feel interested in. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
I talk a lot, don't I?
I was going to say, you could.
We should have just done this bit and not done the studio bit,
Brilliant. This is so good. No, this is the most zen approach to production I've heard in a long time. It's really, really healthy.
But I think Martin's right. Yeah, sometimes it's not about, you don't have to say I've got to achieve something. It's like making music is like training. It's like if you're a proper athlete, you go out running every day. It doesn't mean you're doing your best run, but you're keeping yourself fit.
I agree and I disagree with that. I think being a producer, you always have to do. You always have to produce something. Like an athlete, you always have to go for that thing. I run regularly. I can go for a run, and I'm not thinking about my run for half the time, and it's really easy. I'll go for the same run 2 days later, and it's the most horrendous experience in my life. It's everything. What you've eaten, it's everything. There's no answer to it. All I can say is that you just have to generally get through it, and don't feel so bad about, if you've been in the studio and have had a shit session.
Yeah.
What deadline are you on? If you're not on a deadline, go back in tomorrow and do something different. That's why I delete everything, because I know the next day I'm never going to feel the same about it.
Yeah,
I think it's good really approach to probably delete something and start from scratch, because sometimes you're stuck creating something good out of that bad energy.
Exactly, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Think about it like this. We've all had this, right, where we've been working on a song and we're like, yeah, that's dope. Oh, yeah. And the computer just goes, oh, it's gone. Oh, shit, I didn't save it. Oh, shit. Ah, no. Look back up. 2 hours ago? Oh, shit. Load that. Okay, I've lost loads of stuff. Oh, well, I'll try again. Oh, my God, that's so much better. It's that attitude you've got to try and keep forward. It's not easy, believe me. I'm spend time in the studio like this going, why do I even bother? Why do I even bother? So I just make some crazy ass house music and send it to some crazy ass label just to make some money. No, I won't. I won't do it. I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to go to bed. I'll come back the next day instead. But it's really difficult. It really is. That creative block is something that you have to play with rather than manage. It happens to everybody. Very regular.
Yeah, it's amazing when you lose stuff, and it's like, yeah, like when I did that track Wonky Bassline Disco Banger, I was showing off to a friend and playing it to her over Skype and trying to say, like, check out how great my tune is, and the battery went on my computer and Logic doesn't have an autosave, so I lost the whole thing. And that ended up being the biggest track of my career, and I had to remake it from memory the next morning.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And it was, I felt like I'd been beaten with sticks because I hadn't been very sober for the last few days before that, shall we say. So trying to remake this tune when he wanted to just die was kind of the road to perdition. But and then the other thing, I mean, like automation, I've had it before on tracks where you bounce out the track and every single automation change on a certain channel, it's not doing it where it is on the playback. It's like a few frame, you know, it's like some Logic shit, and you have to manually put all the automation so it's actually happening early on Logic to make it do the bounce with the automation and things like that. And you're like, you know, fuck my life, you know, like, why, you know, like, this is horrific. No one has to go through this shit. But then when the record comes out, you can't remember that, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, it's great, I love it, you know?
You can't remember the bad times.
Yeah, well, you know, there's so many, they just blend into what, no, I'm joking.
That story about New Order and Blue Monday, that they had done it all and then somebody tripped over the power cable and unplugged everything and they lost everything. And this apparently mythically, it's not the original version of Blue Monday that went out. It was some other version that they tried meticulously to recreate it and never quite got there.
The original would have probably been better.
Well,
no one will ever know.
No one will ever know.
No, I know, and I'm gonna agree to disagree because I think with Danny, because
again,
I think, yeah, of course, because in a nice way, because I do find that if I've lost half a song and I have to load it up and I was so into parts of it that I have to persevere and get to the next stage, that whatever I do the second time round, I'm not saying it's better, I'm just always more into. I don't know what it is. I just find it makes me more excited to, you know, to go the second time around.
I go into like I'm literally go into this kind of like fugue of kind of like, you know, like, oh man, you know, like it's horror. You know, sometimes it's like the reaction to the mistake is not at all proportionate to the mistake. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
But I've never given up though. I never give up. Always do it.
That's like having children and your child dropping toothpaste off his toothbrush into the sink and freaking out and having a 10-minute breakdown before he has to leave for school. Like,
yeah. I guess I didn't develop beyond that time. You know. I'm joking. But yeah. So, well, yeah. What do you reckon, guys? Should we call it a day? Because the one thing I would say is I've got to render this and then upload it to YouTube tomorrow, which means, yeah, the rendering time is going to be absolutely insane. But
I've got to go to bed as well because I've woken up at 6:30.
I've got to phone it's my brother's birthday and I haven't spoken to him all day, which is, I put some money in his bank account, but that's kind of not enough, is it really? You know what I mean?
He is.
Yeah, he wants monitors. Actually, he's trying to get a set of monitors. So I'm going to try and help him.
What, monitor lizards?
Monitors.
I'm going to get a set of monitor lizards.
He's going to have them as earrings. Yeah.
There's 7 in a set.
It's definitely getting to that funny time in the night, isn't it?
I keep getting stomach aches because there's saliva everywhere. Anyway, I'm going to go, guys. Thank you ever so much. I hope we can do this again. And I'm sorry to go. I could talk all night. It's like having a bunch of mates.
Well, it'd be great to have you back, Martin.
Thanks for putting up with me, and thanks for showing a close-up of your SP12 there, Vincent, like that. It was nice to hiding away there in the little top bit. I do hope I've dropped some information that was useful to people. You know, this isn't easy, and some of you have got records out. Some of you are trying. Whatever it is, it's an odd thing it's a challenge to deal with, but you've got to dig in and treat it like a job, and make you as an artist know that your real person works for you. You know, be your own manager essentially. Martin works for Atjazz essentially in my world, and I do that every day. And Atjazz has to get his jobs done, or Martin kicks his ass. So it's that kind of attitude you got to take. Being an artist that's had the shit end of the stick, to someone that's got labels that treats everyone with a massive amount of respect, so really super, really, really beautiful feelings. So I hope I can impart that on everybody, and let's do this again, and next time we have to have a drinking competition.
Perfect.
Thanks for the great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers everybody. Thanks for joining, and big thanks to Martin. And see you all on Discord. Yeah.
Yep. Cheers,
Yeah.
Daniel.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
You can
Thanks,
use it.
Danny.